All right, we are returning from executive session. If you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right on time.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, consent agenda. We have our minutes from November 7th. We need to change, under next meeting, the chair announced the next meeting would be on Thursday, November 7th, but these are the November 7th notes.
November 21st.
So it should have been November 21st. No, it was November 14th, because that was our working session.
Yep.
November 14th.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of November 7th as presented in the packet.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just that one note on the next meeting, on the page 6.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. On to grants. Any grants? No grants. Okay. Then we can go into our student representative report.
I did link something for you, if you want to announce the teacher
Oh.
that, who's the can drive, who had the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
I have a
The
picture.
special
I have a picture
opportunity.
for you.
Did you guys see the Instagram?
No.
Do you guys want to talk about that first then?
You can say it, or you can say it.
You go.
Okay, we can go back to that. We can go
Okay.
back to that.
Yeah. Okay. So to start off, we had our robotics conference that we hosted at North Andover, and it went pretty good. I talked to Mr. Hearn about it this morning, and even though we didn't have any teams that made it all the way to the final round, we performed pretty well. A couple teams made it to the finals, a team made it to the quarters, and 2 went to semis. Mr. Hearns is proud of us, so that's always good. And on robotics, I know you all had some questions about qualifiers and how that works. Essentially, I have all the details now. There are the regional qualifying matches, like the ones that we hosted, that you can qualify for the state championship in. And the tournaments for the state championship are held in February. And then there are signature events, which are separate from regionals, and winning one of them qualifies straight to Worlds. And a good thing about our competition, Mr. Hearn told me about, is that the teams that went to it felt like it was a signature event, even though it was a regional, which is really nice that we got that feedback. And then there aren't nationals, but there are invitationals. So if you win a tournament, you might get invited to that. In the World Championship, over 400 teams, it's in April, always in Dallas, 3 days long, and there are 7 divisions. And yeah, that's it for robotics.
Did we build a robot?
Did we build a robot?
Many.
Several.
Yeah, we had.
They flew around or wandered around or
They got driven around. This year's competition is about taking rings and putting them in various stakes, and a lot to do with that. We do have teams, 3 teams, teams A, C, and F, going to the WPI signature competition. So they actually left yesterday. And yesterday was mostly registration and skills. Actually, that might be today. Matches tomorrow and then final Saturday. So hopefully that goes well. We got 3 teams competing, which is great. And, Mr. Hearn is also open to do demonstrations. Apparently they have come and done that.
Yes,
So feel
that was
free
going to be my
Love that.
follow-up question. When are they
Yes.
coming, Madam Chair?
So I was a judge
We need
at
to get them
that
in.
event
Mhm.
Saturday. So my question is that my question about that is, did the so none of our teams won,
Mm-hmm.
but does that that doesn't mean they're done, right?
No,
They're-
no,
yeah.
not at all. Again, like we've got teams going to WPI, so
Right.
it's just
So there's
interesting.
still opportunities for
Yeah,
those
for
teams
sure.
to make the further
Yeah.
advance, right?
Yeah. And then, of course, we had the Whitman-Hanson Regional where Team A qualified for the state championship, so that's good. And then also, the Future Medical Professionals Club has a Speaker Friday, which is tomorrow, and it's really nice. We might get some hands-on suturing done, and we might learn a bit about biomedical engineering. I believe that's the main topic. And on the MassR conference, so we were invited to that, and we all went. It was pretty fun. We learned a lot, and we hope to incorporate what we learned to be better student representatives. So there's that.
Yeah, MassR was fun. The pastries were great. So choir is hosting a fundraiser at the Purple Couch Bookshop, which is by Market Basket. I believe the section leaders pick a book and they talk about why they feel like it incorporates into their life or it's important to them. So there's some really interesting books that they picked. I know a couple of them, but definitely go check that out. More information is on their Instagram. I think it was last night or
Last night.
I think it's last night, but I think you can continue to purchase online.
Yeah.
And they'll receive
Yeah.
the funds.
So it was cool. Choir is also hosting a winter concert on December 18th. So next school committee meeting day. Trimester 1 ended for all elementary schools. And American Cancer Society on campus is selling bracelets. I actually have some on. As a fundraiser for just Relay for Life that's going to be happening around March. And winter sports tryouts have started, and track and the other non-tryout sports are going well.
All right. Student Council, we are starting our Stuco Elves next week where the Student Council cleans teachers' classrooms, which is really fun. And on Monday, we actually are taking our ugly Christmas sweater photo, which is the photo we hang up in teachers' classrooms. So they see they're clean, the room is clean, and a beautiful photo of us. Student Council is also holding Operation Donation, which we are starting Monday. So every period 2 class at the high school will assign 2 students in the classroom to manage the funds. So the class has to raise a lot of money, and then the 2 student representatives for that class will go and buy gift cards and stuff for the kid they're assigned. And the winner of Operation Donation will get a breakfast complimentary from Student Council. And also the Student Council is hosting a Candygram fundraiser where they'll be selling candy canes that you can send to your friends or yourself, which is really awesome.
Cool. To start off, we have Cinderella is happening next week on December 13th, 14th, and 15th. There are 4 shows, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. Everything's really coming together. This was our pre-tech week this week where costumes and both stage crew and tech are in. We've started miking people, started putting on costumes. Everything's really coming together. Tickets are available on the nadramaguild.com website. And then a lot of the clubs are taking their pictures for the yearbook, which is very exciting. And the class of 2025 has our Mrs. Fields cookie dough fundraiser where people can buy cookie dough to be sent to their house to be able to make. And yeah, it's really fun.
All right. Did you want to announce?
Yeah,
the-
sorry.
Where it says student representative report, just click on that link.
Yeah. Mr. Rattay, he teaches calculus, AP Calc BC, and also CP statistics, and but he was the teacher that was turkeyed, and yeah, there's a photo. There you go. It's
I
a
would-
lot of fun.
I would like to add that I donated 5 cans that morning to him, so I did
Yeah.
make that happen.
That's a good look.
It looks like a very comfortable costume.
It was a little hot in the classroom, so we
Oh, I was going to say, if it's a
warm.
cold classroom, that would kind of be an advantage.
But when we went outside for the turkey toss, he was saying it was very nice and cozy.
How was the turkey toss?
It was a lot of fun. Sorry, I forgot to write it in our report. It was a lot of fun. I myself participated. We had a lot of seniors participate, some alumni that came back. A couple people dressed up for it. We had a Luigi and Waluigi, and then the guidance counselors all had turkey hats. It was a lot of fun. The farthest throw, I think, was 12 or 13 yards, which was
Really?
impressive. I
Yards?
myself could not throw it
That
that
is
far.
impressive.
Me and my friend got out, I think, at 8 yards.
How big a turkey?
13 pounds.
That's a pretty good
It's
chuck.
hard to get a spiral on it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
It's a little
were.
slippery.
Did you
Yeah,
pull
and
it by
they
the
were-
drumsticks? And
No, we mostly tossed underhand. There were a couple of the pairings went over their heads, which for the farther distances seemed.
You sure that was
to work
yards
well.
and not feet? That's a
It
long way.
was yards. 'Cause
Really?
We used we were on the football field and they used like
The yard markers.
to increase the distance.
That's impressive.
But it was very impressive.
Wow.
I do believe both people who won were like football
Yeah.
People.
so it makes sense.
Wow. One more question. How many? What's the total count of people participating in the show? Like, if you add the crew, the cast, the musicians, everything.
For Cinderella, there are over 70, I believe, based on how many parent volunteers they needed for Tech Week. Because there's, I think, at least like 30 people in the cast, 30 people, I think, in the crew, plus tech and costumes. So.
Fantastic.
Impressive.
and how many cans did y'all collect?
We don't have an exact number because it just got added to the cans that were used for the turkey toss because it was easier to donate them all at once.
Right, any other comments? So speaking of robotics, so I wasn't here last meeting because I was in North Carolina where my son was graduating for aircraft maintenance technician school for the Coast Guard. And so we got to tour the school of all the things they had been learning. So they had like a circuit board where they try and find where it's shorted. And then they had like a soldering room where they solder the aircraft together, I guess. And then the engine room where it shows the engine that he's working on. And he had been on robotics, and actually Worlds 2020 was when they were supposed to go, and that got taken from them. But it was so funny because I looked at him and I'm like, this is all that robotics training finally paid off. All those late nights where you were practically sleeping in Mr. Motherway's room. Finally there, and he ended up graduating with honors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much. And of course, if you want to stay and participate, we really encourage that. All right. Is there any public comment? None? Okay. All right. We're going to do our new business. We have an overnight field trip request to Italy. And I do believe we have a presentation.
Here to talk to us about it. Hello. Thank you for coming. Slides about Italy.
Into the Italy trip, of things going on at the high school. I'm a science teacher at high school. I'm also the coach of the science team. And this Tuesday, we have a big competition at Beverly High School. We have been the regional champions for 2 straight years, and we're trying for 3. So just want to let them get a little shout out to those kids. They're brilliant, and I don't have to do any work. They do everything.
What does
So-
that
What does it entail?
What does that entail?
Once a month, we go to a different high school in the area, and for 7 straight months, and they have 3 science competitions with 4 kids on each team for that competition. Some of them are just memorization and knowledge based. Some are building. This month, they're building. Just for reference, is Leaning Tower of Pisa. Of course, because I do both of those things, and so they're building a Leaning Tower of Pisa out of popsicle sticks, and it has to hold at least 50 pounds, and it has to be made as light as possible. So that's one event. One is all on nuclear physics and chemistry, and the other one's all insects and spiders of New England. So they memorize pictures and species and some facts about some insects and stuff. So kids can find their niche, and they pick the event that best suits their knowledge base and their interests. And the team is growing. I started the team 6 years ago, and we had 7 kids, and now we have about 40.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Wow, that's
they're
impressive.
doing great. So yeah, I'm sorry that I haven't sent that information for you guys.
No, but it's great to hear it.
Thanks for
Thank
sharing
you.
it out. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
thank
great.
you.
Send us
Sure.
some pictures of their
Yeah, I
wanna-
followers.
yeah.
Go science team.
I definitely will.
This is great.
Not of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
spiders.
Yeah,
but
you
of the
don't have to
followers.
bring- I would love to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Those would be
No
awesome.
spiders.
When they
So the Leaning Tower of popsicle sticks is what
That's
it's
right.
yeah.
Joe wants a demonstration of the spiders.
All right. For the Italy trip, just for logistics, but it'll be April vacation of 2026, so it's in a year and a half away. We're going to Rome for 5 days and Florence for 2. And while we're in Florence, they'll also go to Pisa as well for a half a day. Juniors and seniors are invited. If not enough kids sign up, then we'll open it to the younger grades, but we try to keep it for the upperclassmen as much as possible. Students have been asking me for this trip for a few years, like when can we do this kind of thing? So they go to Spain as an annual trip for foreign language. They go every single year. The French department goes every other year. So all the kids that are not interested in those foreign language kind of trips have been asking for more options. And so we're starting to open up more options. So I talked to a history teacher who speaks Italian. I talked to a French teacher who is Italian. And another teacher is to be chaperones. So we have chaperones from 4 different departments. So we can make it a little interdisciplinary, so we can talk about different aspects. So we have a history teacher, an English teacher, a French teacher, and a science teacher. I also teach math as well. So we just kind of like have a whole bunch of different chaperones to show kids around and do things. For 2 of us, we've never gone. 2 of us have gone. They've gone many times, so they're kind of well versed in the visits. So they have things that they can share and show us and. So it's hopefully going to be a really fun activity. And we have, in the PowerPoint slides, we talked about all freshman students have taken world civilization history. And, the next slide, please, I'm sorry.
Of course.
Yeah. They've all taken World Civ, and sophomores sometimes take AP World. So, and then as juniors, some kids take US too. So all of these grades have been talking about Italy somewhere in their curriculum. So we're going to do a lot of stuff with the art history, world history. There's going to be going to the Vatican. They'll be talking about some religious history, some stuff in there as well. So they're going to be going to like 5 art museums while going there. And the art museums are not just art, they're history. So like their art is showing the history. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. We do have a tour guide with us the whole entire time, so it's not like free time. The kids aren't going to be running around the city or anything. They're going to be well chaperoned. We have 4 chaperones with 40 kids. If we get 41 kids signed up, we'll have a 5th chaperone instantly talked and asked to go. So the kids aren't going to be, they're going to be in very small groups, kept safe and kept on track. And the next slide, just some things they're going to see is the Colosseum and the Roman Forum and the Brunelleschi, I don't know how to spell it, Brunelleschi Dome.
But you can build it, I bet.
I bet you I could build that. Yes, I definitely could do that. We will spend a whole day at the Vatican, and including the museums, the church, to see the Sistine Chapel. And then the art gallery on the bottom right is the one with the best art. That's the one with Leonardo da Vinci and all the other famous artists. All the really, really world-renowned art will be there. Of course, Leaning Tower of Pisa will be there for a couple hours. It's just kind of like a passing shot. The kids all want to go there because they're going to take their Instagram pictures, of course. Not me. I still don't have that. And then there's the standards. Just the history teacher, she could not be here. She's taking care of her grandparent at this time. Those are the standards for the World History 1, and the link at the bottom links it and tells how what we're doing directly links to those standards. So it's just showing you that we're not just going on a vacation trip. She teaches freshman history, so she's well versed in these standards. And I love history. History is my favorite. I have a history minor in college. I teach chemistry, but I graduated with a math degree and a history minor. So it's a little bit of everything. So, and then I just put more rationale to go. Students going to be provided with a safe trip with their friends. They're not going to be complaining and everything about they're bored or anything. We're going to have fun things to do every single day. They have full itinerary every day. They have like 1 hour free time in the middle of the day that's not structured. So they can go for a short walk and go around in small groups and stuff. Professional guide will be with us. They speak both languages. Miss Razakowski also speaks Italian, so we're going to have that as well if we need it. They're never going to be walking very far. We have buses and trains and stuff that we'll be going between cities. The kids won't be tired and run down, and they'll be kept healthy. The cost of the trip was supposed to be $4,000, and Miss Raz and myself met with the travel agency, and we said, what can we do to get this under $3,500? We generally run the cheapest trips every year. I'm going to Ireland this year. It's the cheapest trip of the year. We want to make it affordable for all kids, and hopefully we can do some fundraisers to get some kids to not have to pay more than half if we can. That's our goal, is to see what we can do to help some kids that maybe don't have that financial benefit or be able to afford $3,400. $3,400 is the price if we get 40 kids to go, but if we get more kids to go, the price starts to go down. This also gives them opportunity to be independent for some of these kids for the first time in their life, staying in hotels, not having a parent on top of them, being with friends that might be different, and they're living with them like in a small setting for a couple days. They're gonna have to learn how to deal with the people they're not used to dealing with, and of course dealing with other cultures and learning empathy of other nationalities and their belief systems and stuff. And we have to be cognizant we're doing things that they find acceptable, and the kids will learn a lot just by being in a different country. And the kids aren't going to miss any school, so of course we don't have to worry about that. I actually shrunk the trip to not have a day off on both ends as well. So it's not go right from vacation to trip. They're going to have a day off to pack, and I made sure they weren't coming back on Sunday, so they have a day off to get over jet lag and tiredness, and I didn't want them to be taking the day off of school coming back. So I kind of shrunk the trip that one day to get the price down and to get the kids to not interfere with their schooling.
It sounds amazing. One of my first school trips was to Italy, was to Rome. I still remember it. So
awesome.
Just to be
I have not
a fantastic memory for these kids. It would be an amazing trip.
I mean, the only downfall of this trip is we've come to find out there's 4 school trips during that spring season. So the kids have lots of options, but they also we might have a limited pool of kids who might be going. So it is what it is. The England trip is going, and then there is the Spain trip, and there's the Galapagos trip. All right, so there is a lot of options for kids, so hopefully we can get as many to go as possible.
Allie, did you have a...
Yeah, I went on a school trip this April actually, and I want to say they're really fun. Like, genuinely getting to be on my own, because I went to Vienna, so that was awesome. And that 1 hour of free time is probably one of my favorite parts of the trip, because you actually learn so much about like yourself in a different place. That's all.
The kids said the same thing when we took them to Germany 2 years ago. They're like, that free time where you got to like be a little mini explorer was highlighted their day sometimes. So not just like the really important sights to see, but just being a teenager in a foreign city and trying to be a little bit independent with a little bit of freedom is fun. Yeah.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments and a question. So, first of all, there's a lot of science in Rome.
There is.
They have the world's, as far as everybody knows, the original water system, right? They had fresh water running around the city thousands of years ago.
So they will be able to see the aqueduct system that's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really, as a science teacher, I'm thinking you'd probably love that, right? To sneak a little science in there with all that history.
They also have the history of science display in one of the museums for Leonardo da Vinci's, all his inventions and all that stuff that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, so that's a cool thing. My question is that the staff people, the teachers that go on this trip, how is that funded? Is that
they do not pay?
Right. Is it funded out of the pool that's collected, or like
that's what I assume, that the forum just offers this many spots for teachers to go. They don't talk about how it's paid for. We're assuming that it is from the pool of the students. Yes.
Okay. So the district is not costing the district any money.
No.
Okay. And you don't have to pay either, which is nice because that makes it affordable.
But we're working 24 hours.
Oh, I know.
Believe
me, I know that. And one more comment. Florence also fantastic. My daughter went to art school there for a semester, a semester abroad when she was in college. So I got to see the university there, the art university is fantastic. So
I can't wait
I
to
don't know if
see.
you have any time for that. I don't know if that's on the itinerary, but if there is an opportunity, it's well worth it.
Yeah, definitely look into that, yeah.
Yeah.
You have any comments?
No.
All right, this looks incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And
So, Madam Chair, just our plan would be to vote on this at our next meeting.
It is, yes.
Thank
So
you.
it'll come up at our next meeting for a second read, and that's when we will vote.
thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great night.
Yeah, good luck at the science meet.
Yeah. And we definitely want pictures.
Leaning Tower of Pisa, popsicles. Yeah, or spiders.
All right, we have a temporary policy change to policy KFE1. Ms. Lathrop, do you want to discuss that?
Yes, we are asking you to temporarily change this policy in order to allow our nonprofit North Andover youth programs and PTO events to pay the custodial fee at the rate of the custodian that is offered that job. So right now, we pay, it's at the highest hourly rate, plus 10%. And what we've realized is that our PTOs, our youth programs, they were not aware of the change. We made that change rather late at the end of the year, and they do use the school facilities for many things, and we would like to help them by offering them just to pay for the rate of the custodian that takes that position, that takes the job. So right now, anybody that rents from us, they pay the highest rate, and we have a little bit of an increase. But as I said, they didn't have a chance to prepare for this, so funding has been a little bit challenging for them. We're suggesting this is a temporary change, so that now they know going forward that this is what it is and they can prepare appropriately.
So this would only go through June 30th of 2025, and then starting for school year 26, it would return back to the normal policy.
Correct.
And this is only for from some specific groups, the PTOs, the youth programs.
Nonprofit groups.
Nonprofit.
Any nonprofit group, correct. North Andover nonprofit.
And so this won't cost us, it won't cost
It
the
won't
school
cost us anything.
because they'll be paying for
They'll be-
whatever the appropriate custodian
Correct.
fees there are. Okay.
Yes.
No, it does mean that they won't actually know what their cost is until the person's
Right,
assigned,
It
right?
doesn't, yes, it depends
Yeah.
on which custodian picks up that position, but.
But it's an opportunity for them to spend less.
Correct.
Yeah, got it.
I think it's fair that they pay the actual cost of
Right.
the custodian.
Mhm.
Unfortunate that they would have to wait until the one is assigned, but often in I know with the PTOs, it's the one that's in the building anyway, is the one that usually.
So they have a good idea, yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
Are we voting, Madam Chair, on this now, or are we doing it next meeting?
This is on for a news business first read.
Okay.
Is this an urgent matter that needs to be voted on, or can we wait for this for a second read for our next meeting?
I don't think it's
Okay.
urgent, it doesn't need to be voted on. I just want to be clear, we're also not going to go back. We're going to refund anyone who has already paid, perhaps more. If there is a difference, we are happy to adjust that with their next event, but we're not going to be in the refunding.
So this won't go into effect until we vote on it?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, do we have any recognitions?
I do. I have a couple of things. First, I'd like to take an opportunity to recognize Ben Cabrera. You all have seen Ben Cabrera come here. He's our director of K-8 math. I shared a letter with our school community today that Ben has accepted a new position, and he'll be leaving North Andover Public School at the end of this week. But I just want to tell, publicly how grateful we are for the work that Ben has done, the expertise that he has brought to our schools. He's been a leader in K-8 math. Ben was hired during COVID. That was his first introduction to North Andover, so just coming in as a leader during that time is particularly challenging and able to make some relationships and have some really impactful work. Also, really want to recognize he was instrumental in bringing the calculus project to North Andover, and we're really grateful for that. We will not be immediately filling Ben's position, but we do want to make sure that everyone understands that the math initiatives that we have set forth will continue. And Ben is actually going to stay on as a consultant for the calculus project until we're able to hire a new coordinator to be able to do that. But we wish Ben all the best, and we are very grateful for the time that he's worked here with us and for the contributions to North Andover.
Thank you, and I know us as a committee are very grateful to him for all the work that he has done. We do have a little something for him. I know he can't be here tonight, so we will hand it off to you to present to him to show our appreciation.
Thank you. That's really nice. And then I wanted to recognize Parker Dubman and Sharijith Krishna. I hope I said that correctly. Did I? Do you know them? Shri?
Yeah.
Okay. Krishna. They're current 9th graders. They presented at the 2024 National Council of Social Studies Conference. They presented their 8th grade civic-led project. It was a very timely project. Their project was on removing the MCAS graduation. So thank you to Parker and
Wow,
Shri.
they didn't realize how much power
they
had.
I know. So that was great. And also at that same conference, our North Andover Middle School Grade 8 civics teacher, Mr. McGravy, presented his work on slip pros there. And then all of the North Andover Middle School students were signaled out for their over a decade of taking trips to the Edward M. Kennedy Institute. So it was a great day for North Andover Middle School at the National Council of Social Studies Conference.
Thank you. Wow.
It was a wonderful conference.
Oh,
I got to go.
Oh, great.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes.
But I didn't get to go see those individuals, but it was a good conference. People from all over the country.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, roundtable reports. Opportunity for the committee members to share any community events maybe that they had an opportunity to participate in.
All right, well, I'll speak a little bit, just a tiny bit more about the robotics. It was the first time for me to be a judge at an event like that, and I would say it was wonderful. It exceeded my expectations, but I have to say it was really organized chaos. I mean, when you walked into the CAF, it very much looked like a track meet. I don't know how else to describe it. There's people literally running all over the place. But it was really pretty impressive. My role was to look at their engineering notebooks and to interview the teams. And we got to, I interviewed about 10 different teams from all over the place. And it was really pretty impressive what these young people were able to put together from a technology point of view. I was delighted by that. I didn't get to interview all the North Andover teams, but the 2 that I did were both excellent. So kudos to Mr. Cabrera and to Mr. Ahern and all his work there. And not only that, he had to take an extra mile to recruit all these people to be judges, to be referees, all volunteers. So it was really, if you've never seen anything like that, it's worth a look. It's really pretty cool. And one other thing, we had an all-girls team, which I think was a first. That was pretty neat. To see. I'm going to celebrate my birthday by watching Cinderella. So there you go. I'll be there. And then I went to my first health, as our representative, school committee representative to the Health Advisory Committee. Went to my first meeting there. It was great to see all the district's health professionals at work doing what they're doing. I learned quite a bit about how these are sort of behind-the-things scene that a typical parent wouldn't know about, right? All the work that those folks do. I mean, we heard it here when they presented to us, right? But actually hearing what their days are like, it's like, wow, they're busy people. So, and then, this will come later with Kittredge, so that's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
We also had the Santa Parade. We saw Miss Lathrop march in that, and it was really great to see so many of our students who are involved in so many activities be involved in that as well. It was really fun.
It was great. And as I go to the schools now, I'm starting to meet and see more students, and then I was actually able to recognize a few of them on the parade path. I will do better about passing out candy next year. I think I was a little aggressive in the beginning, so my candy ran out, so I do apologize towards the end, but it was a lot of fun.
Us at the beginning were grateful. The band was wonderful.
Yeah.
They marched, and that was wonderful, too.
Yeah. That was very good. All right, upcoming community events. We know the choir concert was announced for December 18th. We have Cinderella, which we're all excited about. Are there any other upcoming events?
I do think the winter concert is December 19th.
December 19th.
Because our next meeting is the 19th, correct? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, the 16th
Yep.
or 19th, right?
Yes,
Yes.
so it's the
Okay, the
19th. The winter
19th.
concert is the 19th. Yes, we have a couple other, the NCAM is hosting a call-in to Santa show on Wednesday, December 18th. They wanted to make sure we announce that. And then this is a little bit far off, but we just learned today that the mock trials that our students participate in, they'll be coming up in January. They'll be in Woburn in January, on January 15th, 22nd, and 28th. It is very impressive. I had the opportunity to go last year. You would think that our students are lawyers. They were so well prepared in the mock trials. It was really just excellent. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, Franklin Schools also has a winter concert coming up on December 19th. And then I'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but we are, North Andover Public Schools is partnering with North Andover Parent Resource Network to bring the Wait Until 8 program here. It's on January 22nd, but I'll talk about it a little bit more in my presentation.
Thank you. All right, school committee community chats. Ms. Cormier, I'll turn that over to you.
So in one of our previous meetings, we had defined the next 3 community chats, and so I just captured who's doing what and what days. So they're listed here. They are connected to the agenda. So I'll work, probably ask Superintendent Lathrop if there's a way that we can start to publicize these, when we get there, as appropriate with your newsletters.
Yeah.
The principals kind of figured out a good way just to help promote what's there.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, I just noticed that it's a Sunday morning, is that right?
No, I think there's
You said February
There should be
1st, and I had,
Saturdays.
I think there's Saturdays.
It should be Saturdays. Yeah.
well,
February 1st is a Saturday.
2025.
you know, I do understand that. All right.
If the dates I put on there aren't Saturdays, then that was my mistake.
Yeah,
Looks
those-
like
We had
They look
said
like Saturdays to
Saturdays.
me.
Yeah, they're all
It's a
Saturdays.
Saturday.
We
Yeah.
picked Saturdays, and I think we've got these dates. One thing, just as we continue in our conversation, especially too, when
Oh, I see, right, okay.
the next one's in the next one is in February. I would maybe we look at kind of our budget calendar too, and just decide if we think we might want one during that time frame to allow questions and things like that. But I think once we get that far and look at that calendar, we can decide if we want to put another one on. That would be the only thing where we might want to be more open about
Yeah,
questions
our
and
vote
concerns.
is that Thursday on the 30th.
Yeah, so we might want to go a little
earlier.
earlier. But so why don't we just get that far, and then we can take a look and figure out if we put
Maybe
another
if we
one,
need
if we
another
can do another one in January.
So did
sometime.
we decide to do them all here?
No. If you could open that back up, there's some at the library. The location's on there. There's 2 at the central office and then 1 at the library. That's based on, the library was not available for the February 1st or March 1st. So Superintendent Lathrop was kind enough to say that we could use the central office on those 2 days.
Here, in this
Here.
room, probably.
I would assume, we can get, I would assume in this room.
Do people know how to find it?
This room?
Well, I mean, I know that Joe and I do, but
Yeah. We'll
Do people-
publicize it.
We'll
I think
publicize it
it's
and
on
put that in
the-
there. Yeah,
Where the address is, but yes.
okay.
All right, moving on to superintendent updates.
All right. Go. So today's center page is, I feel like I have to be careful. North Andover Middle School's made it on here a couple of times. But they hosted a Healthy Choice Fair. So as part of the 6th grade health class curriculum, the North Andover Middle School counselors, the nurses, and the related arts teachers, in partnership with North Andover Police Department and North Andover Youth and Recreation Services, hosted what they hope is it was their first, they hope it will become an annual Healthy Choice Fair during related art classes. They did this on Monday, November 25th, and Tuesday, November 26th. The fair was grant funded. The program follows the evidence-based youth vaping prevention program. They catch my breath. During the fair, there were different activities. They had yoga. They did a tracking exercise with pedometers, and they had an exhibit with educational conversations. They talked about vaping. They talked about making healthy choices, mindfulness. I was able to go. I went over on the day. These pictures are great. You see the PE teacher Mr. Abel up there, and they were outside, and they were able to do you'll see some of the kids outside doing exercises and running, and the pedometer. The day I visited, it was pouring. But we have one wing that was not occupied, so they made good use of the middle school, and they were able to do their pedometer tracking inside. But I had an opportunity to see some of the kids, that middle picture, doing yoga. I went into the gym, and Officer Jimenez was there talking about vaping with the students. I don't have some of the picture of the kids that are working on a poster. They did some posters to hang around the school about the effects of vaping and why they shouldn't do it. That's one of our nurses that's leading a station. As I said, the youth center was there as well. The kids were really engaged. It was 2 very exciting days. All of the related arts teachers were there. If they weren't participating and running a station, they were helping students move from activity to activity. It seemed really successful. And then just some of the things that are happening. The day after we had met on November 22nd was CPAC Awareness Day. So I think we talked about it's called In Your Inclusion Era. So that's some of our central office staff that was wearing their CPAC merchandise. And on November 22nd, I met with the Parent Resource Network, Lisa Roberts, who I learned is related to Allie.
She's my mom.
So she came in to meet with me and Kristen Ando and Michelle O'Leary, our Director of Social Emotional Learning, and what we're partnering with them to bring in the Way to 8 founder, Executive Director of Way to 8 is Brooke Shannon, and she's going to come and speak to, it's a virtual event. She works with parents and communities across the country to help families establish a healthy relationship with technology. She's a national speaker. And the Way to 8 is really talking to families about potentially making the pledge to wait until 8th grade, until your child has a smartphone. Doesn't mean that they can't have a phone, so we're partnering with her to bring them in, and it's a virtual event, and we will talk more about that. On the 25th of November, Kristen and I and Scott Young, the assistant principal at the high school, were able to go to the annual pre-Thanksgiving football game breakfast that was held at Salvatore's, that's sponsored by Commonwealth Motor, and that was great to see our football players, our band members, and our cheer team were all there, have a nice breakfast together before they meet on the field. On the 26th, it was my weekly meeting with the town manager. As you know, it's our opportunity to share resources with each other and talk about some of the things that are happening in both town and school. On the 27th, and I wish I brought it, I forgot, but I went to the Thompson School. They did Balloons Across Broadway. That's a book. And the book is all about the Macy's Day Parade. And it talks about how the Macy's Day Parade was started, and the students in first grade at Thompson School have a tradition of doing their own Macy's Day Parade, so I had the opportunity to go and see them. That's a cute picture of them creating their own balloons.
I saw your video you posted on the
Wasn't it adorable? I did a live feed during it.
It was amazing.
It was absolutely adorable.
Yes.
I'm
So
like,
the
what is this? And then I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yes. For those of you that don't know, I have resurrected the North Andover Public Schools Facebook page, and I am a proponent of live feeds if possible, so I'll try to keep that going. On the 27th, I met with my mentor from, as you know, I work with a mentor from MSAA. It's John Massaro and Mr. Makovich. He reminded me that he was the principal of Revere when and worked with you during the time.
Which school was he in?
Oh, gosh, he told me. I have it written down somewhere. I will email it to you.
Right.
But he spoke fondly of the time that he worked with your company in terms of reading. And also on the 27th, Lucy McCarthy, who is our Director of Transportation, myself and Greg Landry met with NRT to explore the option of moving to electric buses in North Andover. It's not any financial implication for us. We do some of the work in terms of participating in the grants with them, but we have the opportunity to bring electric buses to North Andover, so we're exploring that and what that might look like. And, you know, potentially there down the road, there will be a mandate to have electric buses. So it behooves us to partner with them to get in on the grants, to be able to, you know, so we don't have to spend more money. And I did go to the North Andover football game. I put the score up there so everybody sees it. North Andover did beat Andover at the football game. It was a great win, and especially for our seniors, who I think had a little bit of a challenging year this year, so it was nice to be able to win the
Were
Thanksgiving
you
game.
sort of behind there manipulating? And
I was not behind there manipulating. Nope, I was in the stands cheering on.
So you delegated that to somebody else?
I did delegate
Yeah,
that to
right.
somebody else.
And we had sorry, Superintendent Lathrop, but we had a couple of our football players make Merrimack Valley Conference, like all conference
That's
honors, which was
awesome.
amazing too.
That's great. You know what I love? I think it's the boosters or the younger student football players. They come and they dress in their North Andover football, and they are on the sidelines with football players. And there's some that they give them water, and they have signs. They cheer for them. It's just so nice to see the younger students being there with them. And I had the opportunity to see there were lots of alumni that came back. There were lots of students that were at the game. It was very, appropriate. I saw lots of people interacting in really positive ways, so that was great. I think that's supposed to say 12-2, not 11-2. At 12-2, we had our principal and CO operational meeting. What we were really working on this week was our leadership, some various topics. So during an operational meeting is when each of the directors, so Kristen, Greg Landry as Human Resources, Lynn O'Neill, Special Education, Mike Grant, they have an opportunity to give some updates to the principals about the information they might need. And then a large part of our meeting was devoted to budget and starting and working on budget solutions, but also helping the principals understand what the budget process will look like this year. I participated in the revenue and fixed cost meeting, which is part of the budget process, led by Dennis, the CFO for the town. We had the middle school building meeting on the 3rd. It's really nice. Joe was there too. I'm sure he'll give you an update, but it's nice to see everything coming together. And Joe will have some good updates for you, I think. On the 4th, Tracy and I participated in a budget and equity webinar. It was very interesting. Mass Ready and the Mass Superintendents Association put this webinar on. The topic was really on recovering post-ESSER funds and how districts can budget appropriately now that there's no more ESSER funds that are available to us. There were some takeaways. It was some things that maybe we're not quite at that place for yet, but it was a really wonderful webinar and some great resources that we took away from that. We had an early release professional development day. Those are some pictures from the high school. The high school is continuing to work on Portrait of a Learner, lots of engagement from the high school staff, and those are just some of the opportunities and things that they worked on. Our elementary staff, which was led by Kristen, had a menu of items that they were able to choose from. Each grade level was able to choose something different, and it was really great. I had an opportunity, Kristen shared with me the feedback, what each grade level picked, led by our our teachers of inquiry, who are our teacher leaders. And it's wonderful to see our teacher leaders who are really helping to work and plan this professional development, and then the work that the teachers were able to do, some self-directed work, but guided by our goals and by the district improvement plan as well as the school improvement plans. The Kittredge Forum was this week as well, and I'm sure that Mr. Brown will talk a little bit more about that, but it was well attended. Today we had our ECLC, that is our Essex County Learning Committee meeting. Because we were accepted into this, we have a 2-year commitment to work on a goal, so we're working on parent engagement. And so today was a literature review of some of the literature about how we might sort of move forward in terms of parent engagement within our schools. And then today I did my listening session at the Franklin School. This is a time where I make myself available in the school. The principal gives a spot for me. Staff knows that they can come in and share with me. It was nice. I was the principal at Franklin. For those of you who don't know, I think most of you do. For a long time ago, I left North Andover in 2009, but there are still some staff members, so I was visited by some of the staff members who were still there when I was the principal, and I had an opportunity to hear some of the things that they were working on in their classrooms. Some have changed grades. but also an opportunity to hear how their lives and maybe their families had changed a little bit over time with some new addition of students. But it was great to get a little, to hear from them and hear some of the things that they're doing in their classrooms. Then I just wanted to share a few other updates with you. We have hired Gail Dowd as a financial consultant, really working in the finance director position. Gail is finishing a project in Concord, and so she wasn't able to commit to us full time. So that's why we're still considering it a consultant position. But she is largely going to be responsible for helping us prepare the budget this year. Gail, just to give you a little bit of information, she received her MBA from the Sawyer School of Management, Suffolk University. She worked in the private sector at Ernst & Young. She was in investment bank and trust, and Easton Vance. These were all senior level finance roles. She is in the public sector. She was the CFO for Reading Public Schools, and then she was the interim finance director, and she also was the CFO for the town of Concord. She's currently working as an interim position in Concord as the procurement manager and project manager for the middle school project. She holds a CPA and a school business administrator license, and we are delighted to have her start working with us. She was here Monday working with Tracy and Janet Wright, and we're thrilled. I also wanted to share that we're in the process, we've started the North Andover High School principal search. So what that...
I'm sorry, just one question on Gail as a financial consultant. I know you said she's here to help with the budget and putting that together. How long does her engagement go through?
Her engagement goes through the remainder of the school year.
Okay.
And then because she is still working part-time with Concord, she wasn't able to commit fully. I hope that when we repost in the end of the year, she may be able to apply for the job as a full-time position, but she wasn't able to do that right now.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, so this
could be potentially the person.
The person. Oh, perfect. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't make that connection. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Okay.
Yes. So we started our search for the North Andover High School principal search. So we're starting right now with gathering some information. I'm going to have an opportunity to meet with the student council on December 16th. So thank you very much to hear what our students, Mr. Landry will come with me, and we'll have some questions that we want to ask the students and give them some opportunities to talk to us about what they're looking for in a new high school principal. Mr. Landry and I are meeting with the staff, the North Andover staff, on January 8th. And then I'm offering a listening session for all students, because I know that not all students participate in student council. So it's going to be January 7th, I just learned today. On January 7th, Mrs. Pinkston, the Director of Guidance, has worked with me. I'll be in the guidance office, and any student can drop in and visit and talk with me and let me know what they're interested in seeing in a high school principal. And then we're going to do family and community listening sessions to hear their thoughts about a high school principal. We'll do both one in person and one virtual, and that will be in January. And all of that information will be used to craft our description of what we're looking for in a high school principal. And then lastly, I wanted to share with you that the town manager has provided guidance for the budget. North Andover Public Schools budget guidance for FY26 is 2.75% over the FY25 budget, which would look at a total of $63,771,406. Additionally, the town will be using Medicaid as a revenue source for FY26. The amount that's forecasted is $334,000, which would bring our school's total guidance to $64,105,406, which is a 3.29% increase over FY25.
So looking at the town manager's guidance, is this going to bring us what we need to be able to run the district at level services?
I don't think so. Our budget this year is $62 million. We're running about $3 million over that. So that's about $65 million. If we were to run level service the way we are now, looking at the salary increases, I would project somewhere a budget at that level services would probably be somewhere around $67 million, $69 million.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking, like, in terms of percent, the number, where we are now, I want to say, make sure, the number we approved last year was just over $62 million. It would take 5% to get us to about $65 million to have level funding for next year based on what we're actually spending. So to get to 67 is going to actually be more of a 7% number. And the consequence then is if we don't get those numbers, because 2.75 is a very much smaller number, is that there's going to be the difference between 63 and 67 is a large amount of money, which translates into what?
Which translates into you receiving a budget. So what we will share with you is a level service budget, which will show you the dollar amount that it would take to maintain the district at the level of spending that we have been doing and the level of budgeting that we've had now. And then I'll also share with you a budget that meets these recommended guidance. And I will highlight for you areas where we would make the cuts in order to come in at that number.
So we'll see two different.
You'll see
budgets.
two different budgets.
Okay.
Three. I missed count. I counted
Two, only two.
level service and what you recommend to meet
Correct,
the 64,105.
correct.
And hopefully that'll be done in a way that we can sort of have a menu of things that we could look at that would take you from A to B, right? In other words,
Yes,
yeah, at least at a high level, like the amounts. So, for example, as a school committee, we could say we want more than what's being recommended.
correct.
But it might be nice if we could say that like X dollars buys us this and Y dollars buys us
Right,
that.
I think that, there's level services. I think that there might be some things even within level services that we might be able to say that these are reductions we could make. But as you pointed out, the other budget will be a much larger reduction. So there will be obviously there'll be items that we won't be able to fund. And what I'll present to you is our best recommendation in order to meet that budget. And then that's a conversation that you can have whether or not you believe those are the right ways to go or if there are other areas to look at.
Okay, good.
So with the reduction in the percentage that we're getting, not reduction, just from 2.75 from previous years, we knew that was happening.
Correct.
Right? So this is no surprise.
It's not a surprise. No.
Okay, so we knew the percentage would get reduced and that we wouldn't be able
Right.
to continue forward
Correct.
with the increases that we had been doing.
Right.
So this is what we've been preparing for?
Yes and no. I think what the
right?
surprise is that what we've talked about is that we anticipated that the budget that was presented was going to meet our needs. And what we've realized is the last 2 years it didn't meet our needs, and now, therefore that's why we have run over our budget. We can't continue to run over the budget. So we need to, this year, present a budget that we know that we can live within the means of this, or, as you've said, what level services and whether and how you want to have that conversation.
So the town's supporting
But we
us
did
in
know
the-
that we were
yeah.
not going to receive the same level, the higher level of percentages that we had received before.
So the town's delivering on what they said they would deliver potentially in the reduced funding, but we thought it would be sufficient based on the prior budgeting that was done. But now with you taking a look, we know it's not.
It's not. I mean, the budget numbers are showing us that, right? We're
Yeah,
running
it's-
over this year.
yeah.
We're already over budget.
Already over.
The town is doing the same to other counts, right? We're not the only ones that
Correct.
are getting a slower rate of increase.
Correct.
Right.
Is it correct? I think what you're saying is that when, a year ago, when we were at the tri-board meeting,
Mhm.
right, town manager put out a 5-year plan. And that 5-year plan had the 2.75 number. If I remember correctly, it had that 2.75 number in it then. So the anticipation at that point was it would be enough.
Thought it'd be enough, right?
Right.
Because we were anticipating only spending $62 million.
Yeah.
Right. No,
Yeah.
just for
Yeah.
clarity,
Yeah,
yes.
we thought it'd be okay.
I recognize that's
And
not what happened, but that's That's what I think that's what you mean when you
Yes.
say that's not a surprise, right?
Yeah.
Meaning the 5-year plan always had a decreased number for this upcoming year.
Yes.
I think that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, since I haven't been through this before, at least here, this rough schedule, you're going to present us a budget with the two budgets
Mhm.
in 3 or 4 weeks, whenever it is.
Correct. I
We-
mean, we
we
have
have
the
those
budget
dates next.
calendar in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in
okay.
January, I think, early.
Now, how does the capital budget relate to this?
Separate.
Capital budget is separate.
Yes, but money is money.
It's voted on separately.
It's
at
voted
town
on
meeting.
separately at town meeting, capital budget.
Okay, but money is still money. I mean, I guess what I'm really getting at, we can talk about this a little later if you want, but since I had all these numbers in front of me, I looked at enrollment by grade and did a sort of rough calculation. If the number of 8th graders 5 years from now was equal to the number of 3rd graders this year, and that happens throughout, we'll be down 500 students. So that suggests we may not need to operate as many buildings. And I don't know exactly which accounts they come from, but we could avoid cuts in teachers if we don't need to have as much space, right?
Correct. Yep.
Now, it may be, have to make this decision across two budgets, but clearly they are interrelated.
They are. I mean, those are things that in order to make this number, there are large cuts that will have to happen, and that is something that we'll have to look at.
And just so, public's clear, when we talk about level services and providing what we have now, we're talking about the number of teachers, the number of TAs, the low student classrooms. Those are the things we're talking about when we say level services. And when we're not meeting those, that means we're not going to have possibly the same number of teachers, the same number of TAs, possibly higher classrooms. That's what we mean when we're not going to meet the level services.
Correct.
That's a good point, like the definition of level services. So that's by the numbers, it's not about the quality of the education.
Correct, is by the numbers. So level service
it's
is what
by
we
the-
have now.
So it's
Keeping
different.
what we have.
Yeah, it may or may not be the same, but it doesn't necessarily mean that by not delivering level services that we impact the quality of the education, potentially. Right?
Right, I think.
That is right.
So so is that just the definition of level services? What does that mean? It doesn't mean same
I
level of
think it
quality, it just
means-
means the same number of
It would mean-
teachers,
You
the
you
same
take
number
all
of
the
things.
stuff you're doing now and apply the higher price rates. That's what it means. It's just inflation, no other adjustment.
It's primarily an adjustment for what salary is going to cost us next year based on our contracts.
What curriculum we have, what software we're purchasing.
So it's
know.
level staff and services, if you
Yes,
think about
it's
it.
expenses as well.
Yeah, so it would take into account anticipated cost increases in heat and electricity and stuff like that too, right?
Those aren't ours.
Those
aren't
aren't
ours
ours
anymore.
anymore.
Oh, that's right, they're not ours anymore.
Yeah.
And when we talk about level funding, that means if this year we got $64,000 and a little bit more, that means next year we would get the exact same amount, but because cost of staff goes up, you then have to reduce your staff or your expenses to meet that. And then the third scenario is you have a reduction in the number, so we're not getting the 62 million, but we get 60 million, in which case you have even more cuts you need
Right.
to make.
So it's a ripple effect.
So like level services is always, or the other way is you can have an increase. Level services is usually the good thing. So my fears are when we're talking about potentially a $4 million difference, like there's some things that we know we can make some small adjustments that aren't going to impact overall the quality of a kid's education. Like 21 kids versus 19 kids in the classroom is not a huge difference still within the numbers that makes a quality education. But that's not $4 million. Like that, then we're talking big things, and that's hard. And in essence, what we're looking at as a town overall is the two solutions to not have to experience that is either we as a school department get a piece of the existing pie so that our number can be bigger, or as a town, the pie is bigger in general. But to do that, to do a bigger pie for everybody means going above challenging Proposition 2.5, 2.5, and asking for an override. And that's a scary thing in this town. We have done it. We did it 15 years ago, 2009.
Yep.
It's happened. It's happened several times. Actually, on the website, you can see all the times that it has worked and what the money was spent on. You can see all the times it didn't work. So it's not always a no. It's a half and half. I think if we counted it up.
Were these all capital overrides, or were they operating overrides?
Operating.
Some of them were operating. Some of them were debt exclusion.
Yeah.
About half and half on the ones that are approved too. And that's just that's what we're. If we want to have a certain level of education for our kids, we need to know, and thank you for doing this for us, Superintendent Lathrop, we need to know what that number is, and then we need to advocate for that. And whatever that number, we have to just be, yes, I feel like, yes, we get a recommendation from the town manager, and I understand why that happens, and she has the big plan for the next several years and where the number comes from. The fixed revenue cost committee does all the work, and the FinCom does all the work, but at the end of the day, we're also the 5 people that get to make the decision of what we're going to recommend and send to FinCom and to the select board. We have that ability, and it doesn't mean we don't necessarily have to make it that number. We could, we don't have to. I just want to to put that out there. And the other thing I learned today in digging is I learned that the Medicaid money, according to our town charter, is actually supposed to be ours.
In the charter?
In the charter.
Because in the education reform bill, I lost that battle.
In the charter, there's a table of all of our revolving funds. And maybe I don't understand how to read it, and I will gladly be corrected. But in where we establish all the funds, establishment and designation, the one that's listed, the Medicaid reimbursement, where is it? Medicaid school department. The person who's authorized to spend it is the superintendent. The revenue source is the Medicaid reimbursements, and it's supposed to go towards curriculum. That's what it says in our charter. So I'd like to see or understand why it's not always been that. And I know there's a history involved, and I'm sure there's some reasons why. I'd just like to know a little bit more
Do
about
we
it.
know how much money are we not getting? Is there
This year we got the entire
This year we
amount.
have the entire amount.
And so is 334
next-
not close
That's
to
what
the
they're
entire-
projecting for next year.
Okay, so we're getting the entire amount anyway.
Right. I
All
just want to
So,
make sure that we
all right.
understand that is. I feel according to the charter, that is what it's supposed to be. And if it's not supposed to be, if it's been something different, and there's a different tradition we have here in town, I'd like to just know a little bit more
All right.
about that.
Well, in common sense, the money is generated because of our
We do it.
activity, and we don't get it, the town doesn't get it unless we
We do it.
document it.
We
So
do it.
the incentives are terrible. Give it to the town and make sure the school committee has no incentive in actually generating it.
Mm-hmm.
But we get it, though. That's our incentive,
We-
isn't it?
We
Like, we're
are
getting
getting it this year and next year because the select board, the manager, and the finance committee have agreed to do it.
Okay.
But they don't
But
have to.
They don't
I
have to.
think the point Joe's trying to make, if it's in the charter, we should be getting it every year regardless.
Well, of
But we
course,
have
he's
it.
right. If
Okay,
that's
yeah,
what it
all right,
says.
yeah, okay, got it. But we haven't. Oh, but we had it this year, and we're projecting
Yeah.
to get it next year.
Well,
Okay.
we didn't have it this year at the beginning, but we do now.
But we do now. Okay.
So that's worth exploring to find
Yeah.
out.
That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying. Is I'd like to know a
Yeah.
little bit more.
All right.
Go ahead.
And I just all the services and all the things our town does for us really are important, and they matter a whole lot to the quality of life that we are all able to enjoy by being residents of North Andover. And at the same time, my job and our job is to advocate for what's best for our kids, and yes, that has to exist in what's good for the entire community. But I am going to struggle to vote for a budget that calls for that could be potentially $4 million in cuts we have to do, and rationalize that in my head. That's best for our kids. That's going to be hard for me. I'm just putting that out here right now. That I'm not saying we have to go up to $67 million. That would be, but that number is going to be really hard for me. I'm just saying that up front.
And I think, and one of the goals that we've always had, since the budget crisis is full transparency.
Yeah.
And it's important that the community have full transparency that if we're having to make these cuts, what exactly does our schools going to look like next year with a $4 million cut?
And is
It
that
could be a
what we want?
significant
Yeah,
change.
and I think we have to understand what that means. But will the education be worse if our class sizes are bigger or no? Well, but I think that's where, and that's probably what will depend. What do those cuts mean to the classroom, so we can talk, because I know as
It's
a,
classrooms and programs. I think that,
Classrooms.
I think you have to just be aware that that's something that we'll bring forward. I mean, obviously, we'll do our very best in making those recommendations to minimize as much loss as we can.
Yes.
I think, but
Significant.
If we're gonna, at some point, I agree with you, Joe, at some point, I think we probably would have to say to the town, we can't make the schools as good as we'd like to without a bigger increase, but we have to be really well prepared to
We
do
do.
that.
We absolutely do. But we also learned in our,
Well, look, just to finish the thought, we have to know, I think we have to have made some cuts and made clear that we saw things that could have been avoided. And then we have to lay out an explanation of what it is that we need and why we need it and why that's gonna make things better.
yep, absolutely.
My
I don't
guess is that
disagree
we
with
probably can't do it in time for next year, but might we need to do it? I think you're right.
And we learned at our retreat from I can't think of the gentleman's name that came to help us learn about budgeting.
Bob was his first name,
Bob.
but I can't think of his last name. Bob M?
Oh.
Oh, L.
Proposition 2.5 builds a structural deficit into you, and you can last maybe 6 or 7 years before you have to do something about that, because it's not enough to keep up with inflation. It's just simply, it's not enough. And we've gone 15. Like we've put it off, and that might be that scares a lot of people, and I know that, but if we want the thing that we want for our kids and for our town, we want quality services, and we want to be able to deliver on what our mission is, that might be a discussion we need to have, and we have to push hard for.
I don't disagree, I
Yeah.
just think we have to be strategic
I
about when we do it.
don't disagree either, sir.
and I think
All right.
we
So
need
we
to
will agree to not disagree, will we?
We are agreeing not to disagree. We are in agreement.
I think we've got to put out both and kind of
Yeah.
what are the
Yeah.
pros and cons? Like what doing an override? What's the short term, long term consequences of an override? Cutting this amount from the budget. What's the short term and long term, plan for both? And then we've got to make a decision based on what we hear from there, right?
Yeah.
And it's,
Well, and I think we want to have some alternatives too, right? Like you have buckets of expense. So for example, maybe there's two ways to get there. One is you cut programs, but you don't reduce staff, right? Or you don't reduce all the staff. So you cut. I don't even want to pick one as an example, but you just take a program that takes some resources. If you don't do that program, then those human resources, can be applied to regular staffing, as an example, right? That would be one way to make a significant reduction. Of course, you might not want to get rid of that program, but that's a way to do it without necessarily a student-facing staff reduction, for example. So I think we need, like I said before, buckets or categories or something like that to say, maybe I think this gets to your point about maybe we don't need the whole 4 million, maybe we can get away with 2.5 of it, but we're probably going to need something, right? That's where you're going.
I don't know if this is the time to say this, but maybe it's when you look at your budget calendar, but the budget calendar is tight. I mean, we definitely have time, but there's a lot that you're going to want to know and you need to know during that process. You might want to consider holding like a budget workshop at some point. Much
Between
like
now and then, yeah.
Yes, in order to, maybe during the day, just as you did when we met before, the last.
For our retreat.
Yes, for your retreat, in order to sort of get up to speed on what some of those things might look like. I know that the town manager would be willing to join those budget workshops if that's something
We
that
should
you
put something
would
there.
like.
And I want to throw out one more thing, which is, look, no, override's a dirty word. Nobody wants to talk about it, we may have to get there anyway. But I wonder if there isn't any other adjustments that could be made at the town level that might not require that, yet still increase this budget. I know that doesn't. I'm not trying to say there's magic in the air.
It's not within our control.
Right, but the point, yes, that's correct. But one possible outcome, because this happened, I believe, across the street, right, where the town meeting actually voted to give the schools more money, over their budget, right?
Yeah, but then they didn't know where it was coming from.
Maybe that's not a great
You can vote
solution.
to give somebody more money, but if there's no money to give,
Yeah.
it's a
Well, I just
moot
wonder
point.
if, you know, maybe it's not possible.
Can
but
we have the town manager come and talk to us about where
Yes.
this came from? Like, could we invite her to our next meeting?
Well, and she'll do the presentation
just-
about
Yeah,
And there's the tri-board
At the
meeting that's
tri-board.
coming up, and that you'll learn more at the tri-board
Yes.
meeting. And I think you could, as I said, you could have a budget workshop.
Can we, at the tri-board, do we hear about this budget, or do we hear more about the capital budget?
We'll have the 5-year forecast. She'll do a review of where we are in the master plan, and she'll outline where all the money is coming from in this year from the revenue and fixed cost committee, and what the proposed splitting of that is among all the different departments.
But it is both, right? Because she always has to plan +5, +10 years out for all the departments. So she has an idea of what she's projecting is going to be spent by, you know, the DPW and police and fire and all that, and schools. She has that,
She also
a
has
concept.
a rough idea of, based on projects happening now, when new growth and when new monies will be coming into town, and like with Amazon money and what that means, and with our projects happening, and like, so we have all that, and like, and I'm not saying her numbers are wrong at all. They're usually pretty spot on, right? And it just comes back to our pie is too small. We only have a 10-inch pie, and we need a 12-inch pie. More pie is good.
Could I go back to the enrollment? Do we have a more formal projection of enrollment than my top of the head envelope, back of the envelope one?
There were some enrollment projections, and the enrollment projections were used for master plan, facilities master plan 2. I think we're trending a little bit on lower enrollment than what we've seen, and that's why we have had some conversations with what's going on at Kittredge, what master plan, facilities master plan 2 might have some adjustments to it.
I looked at those numbers this afternoon, and it didn't make any sense to me that it was going up enrollment, and then it started going down, and then they said, well, a year from now, it's going to start going up again. That seems pretty casual to me. I mean, you don't just manufacture, this forecasting is easier than what most economists have to do, because every child who's going to be in our schools 3 years from now is alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was some projections in there based on some.
What you have to look
growth.
at. Yeah, you have to look at movements. So what I was doing in my head didn't take into account the history of kids moving in and moving out. So that's what I'm asking. Do we have, and if we don't, maybe we should get one? I mean, I could do one a little better than an envelope, but I'm also happy to have someone who's a real demographer do it. But the basics are, for someone who's forecasted, are pretty simple.
At a future meeting soon.
Yeah, right.
In terms of a budget workshop, would it be best to do that after the initial budget presentation you do, before our final vote, or is it best to do that before the initial budget
I
presentation?
would think before, because we need to think about the two budgets.
Yeah.
One that
Right,
we're at, and one that's a cut one.
If the purpose of the budget workshop is to get us familiar with the choices and options that you'd have, I'd want that as soon, even before it's completely baked, like the sooner as possible, so we have time to think about it and think questions and be thoughtful versus just reactive. I would say
We
the
should
earlier the
think
better.
hard about what that day could be now, because it's 2 weeks away.
So we'll get to that in the chair's report. We
Well,
have
3
school
weeks.
committee
2 weeks
meetings
away
and budget
is-
calendar. So when we get to
Yeah.
that, let's look at some more dates.
Okay.
Right, and I think the other thing that you have to do, and I think that's your plan to tonight, is the vote on the budget directives, right? Because those are the directives that sort of lead the budget, and so it's important, I think, that the school committee sets your priorities and your goals, because that will help us as we're doing both budgets, right? So that will drive the work based on what your priorities are in terms of what we may decide or offer to you as cuts or as something to reduce the budget, because we'll be keeping in mind the priorities set forth by the school committee.
How would you see that decision being framed? Or I mean, I have some thoughts about it, but
Well, that's
That's what we're going to get to that.
It's
We have
coming
that
up.
on the agenda.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So just one, because I think one of the things too is if we do go and ask for more money, beyond what we're initially getting allocated now, I think one of the things that's going to be really important is showing all of the cost-saving measures that you've put in place already, whether it's the processes that you've done where you've stopped, just spending that didn't need to happen, to be really bluntly, that you were still able, that people were still able to do their jobs and do their jobs well, but where you focused them to do different processes. Capturing those things is really important, I think, to make sure that we're communicating those out to people to show that we now, that you're putting budget controls into place to stop the spending that was happening that shouldn't have been happening, right? We've never, I don't feel like we've ever, a lot of that has never been detailed out and communicated really clearly. And I think we need to do that if we're going to try to, I think in all of this process.
And I don't want people to think that there was misuse of funds.
Right.
People
No,
weren't
not misuse of
people
funds.
weren't
That's not what I'm
spending to buy or to spend on things that we didn't need. I think that we weren't accurately capturing all the appropriate expenses in the district. Now, there could have been some things that were purchased when maybe they shouldn't have been, but it's more about just what I said, accurately capturing the true expenses of our district.
But I think there's also been examples, and they're not huge items, that you've shared where there were processes where individuals were able to use outside resources, and you were able to do a cost, and you were able to go, hey, rather than doing that, let's do this. So people were still able to get what they needed, but at a lower cost to the district. And I think those types of processes that you put into place were very important and help to show that you're putting those fiscal controls into place. And those numbers build up over time. And I think it's important that we're able to detail out those items for people to understand that. Because that's key. That's how you run a budget. And you're doing that now. And I think we need to communicate that.
Right, you put some controls in place, for instance, on I'm trying to remember, there was substitutes.
Outside lawyer fees, things
outside
like
lawyer
that.
fees, correct.
That you have done.
Like
Yep.
these things are, those add
We
up.
are tracking the substitutes, and the buildings are doing a beautiful
Yeah.
job this year. They're coming in, I think they're going to come in under budget, quite honestly.
Yeah,
Right.
and
But
those
but that's
things,
the kind of thing that you've put in place that's making a difference, right? That we should, I think Kelly's point is that we should make sure we note that.
Yeah.
Because basically the bottom line is we're going to go, if it ends up this way and we go to the town and say, we really need more money, a logical question could come, well, why? Have you really scrubbed everything
have you
you're
trimmed
doing?
the
Yes.
fat,
Yes.
right? Are you
know,
watching
and-
your spending? And you've done, and there's always something, but you've gone through and you've captured a lot of this already.
We have.
Yeah.
So
Could I
noting that is
actually-
key.
I want to add something along those lines, because when I went to my first meeting of the CREST Collaborative, I asked about transportation in particular, and also about how we could get even more services from them. Also, when I started looking at the enrollment data the other day, I noticed something that I'm not quite sure how we compare, but a very high percentage of the students that are out of district for us are in collaboratives, which speaks well, right? It's undoubtedly much less expensive than if we hadn't done that. And then I said, how can we get more? And there's this, if we can communicate to them what our needs are early on, they may be able to plan their budget to do more stuff in those areas. So, and obviously, I guess maybe I should go back and ask them about transportation, because that's an area where we could save a whole lot of money. I mean, if they can run it more cheaply than the people that we're buying it from now.
We do have a transportation, you're talking about, we do have a transportation contract that we are,
I'm talking about, to kids, either the special ed kids going out of district or the ones that we have to bus because, I can't remember the exact term.
Homeless.
The homeless,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Isn't that where we have really high rates?
we do have high rates there.
And
correct.
they're a collaborative. Their job is to do collectively for all their districts. And it doesn't have to only be special education.
We do have a partnership with SEAM, which is our other collaborative that we belong to. We do have a transportation.
Oh, good, okay.
All right, let's move on. Let's go into, I have just one quick question.
Sure.
When does Gail start?
She started Monday.
All right, perfect.
4 days ago.
Welcome, Gail.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, Gail.
All right, moving on to the chair updates. So the North Andover Administrators Association has asked to begin bargaining negotiations. The first meeting is set for December 10th. We do need a committee representative. If we have anybody who would be interested in negotiating?
I haven't done one. I would be more than happy to do it. I don't know, is there two of us just so there's someone else, or is it one person?
I think for this one, we just would be fine.
Okay.
So, all right,
There
thank
you
you,
go.
Kelly. So, Kelly will be our representative for bargaining with the North Andover Administrators.
It won't just be you. You'll have
Association.
administrative support too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You won't be alone.
I'm like, all right, give me a scratch.
But you'll be acting on our behalf,
Yeah,
and then
okay.
you'll bring information back to
Okay.
our executive sessions. Okay, thank you. All right, update on the superintendent search. So we did have the RFP that had gone out. The deadline to respond is December 9th? No,
16th.
16th, thank you.
2 p.m.
December 16th. So there's a couple things that we need to make decisions on this. So as you can see, and I know many of you saw this, MASC had sent in a proposal. However, it doesn't meet 30B. So it can't qualify under our RFP.
Sorry, 30B,
Yes, the requirements that we would need under our RFP.
but
So we can't take it into consideration with our RFP.
why not?
That's the rules.
Well, wait a minute. So
What's
we are a
30B?
this is an association.
This is what I'm being told by the town.
This is an association of which we are a member.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Also, Collins Center has reached out, because we sent it to them too. They also cannot respond to an RFP, but they can respond to a request for a quote, similar to MASC. So we have two options. One, we can withdraw our RFP and ask for, then we could then take into consideration MASC. We could get a quote from the Collins Center, and then there was a third one that we had discussed early on that was a public sector. We could ask for a quote for them and then consider those. So that's an option we could do. The other option is we can keep the RFP, we can extend it and send it out to some other, probably out-of-state third-party companies.
So first, what is 30B?
So from what I'm gathering, and I don't know all the information, it's certain requirements that have to be met under the RFP.
Under North Andover's RFP process, you mean? Like
Is
whenever we issue an RFP?
When you issue an RFP, certain criteria have to be met.
And this is somewhere in North Andover rules
I
and regs?
don't know if it's North Andover, I don't know if
Probably
it's,
Mass General
I think it's
laws.
Mass General laws that have to be met for an RFP.
So is this really just a procedural paperwork issue, like we shouldn't have, to be able to get the assistance from the organizations we're part of? Like, we shouldn't have submitted an RFP, we should have submitted an RFQ.
And we had
So
voted,
is this-
we had
'cause
two
we thought it was
options.
RFP.
And we could have done an RFQ, we could have done an RFP, we voted for an RFP.
Okay.
So it seems like we might need to vote for an
An
RFQ.
RFQ.
So we can withdraw the RFP, and we can go forward and ask MASC and Collins Center for quotes.
Yes.
Could I move that we withdraw the, did I catch your signals, madam?
Yeah.
Which is,
This
I
just
think, which is
paperwork.
what we had
Yeah.
kind of discussed doing in the first
Yeah.
place.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, all
You
right.
learn.
So you
first,
have a
did you
motion?
second? Yeah.
So okay, hold on. So let's first, I think, let's be clear on what the motion is. We're withdrawing the RFP.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we want two separate or we want one?
Let's separate them,
Perfect.
okay?
All right, so we have a motion to,
Withdraw the RFP.
and a second?
All right, any other discussion?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Oh, great idea, yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So then we need to decide, we want to then ask for quotes.
From I actually knew Collins, so it's very appropriate that I,
Okay.
get to make
And
this. He's no longer
Collins, the
around,
Collins
but-
Center did contact the town and said, we can't respond to your proposal, but we'd be happy to
Provide a
submit a
quote.
quote.
Yeah, wonderful.
The
So
thing
you,
about, and I've talked to the folks at MASC, they've done hundreds of these.
Yeah, and as you can see, they responded, they did submit a proposed contract. which is
Perfect.
in your packet. So we have a cost there.
Which is, if I remember, it's like 15 or
I
16,000.
think it was 11,500.
Or even better.
Yep,
Yeah,
11,500.
11,500. That's
And
on
it's
the
gonna
list.
cost 40,000 or something like that on the commercial market. And
All right. So
I view that so I'm moving that we do an
Q.
RFQ and send it to MASC and the Collins Center.
Well, we have one already from MASC.
Oh, all right, to the Collins Center.
And then there was the third. We can send them to others. So
Right,
I
that's
think
fine.
we can open it up to others.
And-
So any other
Yes.
appropriate organizations. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Yeah, if anyone else
Okay.
wants to give us a quote,
All right.
Yeah.
we'll take it.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
It's a great idea.
Okay. Mr. Hicks.
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
It's a fabulous idea, yes.
Ms. Cormier.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So then I will have them go ahead and get that other quote. And then we can discuss them at our next meeting and make a choice from there and get the process rolling on that.
Perfect.
Any other?
Could I make a comment about
Yes.
that? So
Yeah.
I found, this is sort of a modern miracle, that I actually remembered that somebody sent me a paper, and I found it in my files in less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
And it was the MASC summary of their view of what the search looks like.
Yes,
Makes a
and I think they
huge
emailed
amount
that
of-
with
Did
us,
they
too.
include it again?
Mhm, they did.
So what I thought was impressive was that the first phase just makes so much sense. And it, but the first thing you do is you define kind of
It's done.
what you want, and then you have listening tour, which we already talked about. Oh, here it is. So phase 1, leadership profile, identify success factors, et cetera, develop job descriptions, approve leadership profile, conduct focus group surveys, report to the school committee, and then you approve the selection criteria.
It's not in our packet.
Okay, that's different. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I think we'll do is, yes, at our next meeting, we should have all the quotes, and then we can go over all the, I guess, minute information between the differences of them, and when we make our decision on what we want to do moving forward.
So,
Yes.
Yes. So we need to form what they're calling here a screening committee, right?
I think we can do that after we decide which one we're going to go with.
Right, because it could be a little bit different depending on which one we go with, right? But we should all be aware that that's coming up. Right?
Yes,
That we'll
yeah,
need to,
and
we'll
then
need
we'll
to form
talk
a
about-
screening committee. It'll have members from this, 1 or 2 people from this committee, I would guess.
Wait a minute, a screening committee, you
Like
mean?
a subcommittee?
Are you talking about the initial applicants, or are you talking about this phase? I would have thought that it would make sense that you would appoint whoever you're going to appoint, our 2 members, to run phase 1.
I think
We don't know what the phases are.
Yeah, I
yet.
think we
don't
wait
know.
until we have the
Yeah.
quotes and we figure out that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because it
could be different for
It could be a
them.
different, if we don't go with MASC, they might have a different process. Is that what you're
They could,
saying?
they could.
Yeah.
So
But in
we'll
any
see.
event, no matter what, that we will be forming something.
We'll be part
Some
of it.
kind of a screening, people will have to do that, which actually, I know we're talking about superintendents, but are we doing anything like that in the principal search or no?
Yeah.
Is there a screening committee being formed to interview candidates and things like
Right,
that?
so we're not there yet. That's why I presented we're in the listening phase to get qualifications for the North Andover High School principal position.
Oh, and then it will come after
And then
that.
once I know what people want, then you write a job description based on what people are looking for, and then you post the position. And then, yes, so Mr. Landry will get that moving, and we'll do the same thing for Director of Special Education. He's already reached out to
Yeah.
CPAC about organizing with them to help us do some listening.
Right. Actually, I served on the last principal search. I don't know what it was officially called, but whatever that committee was called.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Yes.
Just a question, Chairwoman Cody. So when we get the quotes back,
Mhm.
will we have the opportunity then, because we'll look at them, and will we have the opportunity to influence phases or milestones within those processes? And what I'm asking about is one of the first, we've had some discussion on this, right? And I hold strongly the first thing we need to do is understand what's the job description and the skills that we need and a superintendent we think is the right one. I think then we have the opportunity to, I would suggest, could we stop there and kind of go, hey, let's look around right now and say where we're at before we continue, but I do think we need to do the initial, get a good solid job description and the skills. So I'm just wondering when the quotes come back, will we be able to
Phase one.
phase
cost.
one, yeah, phase one, here's phase one, and then we can make a decision when to
It would be
proceed or
my
not.
assumption that that would be part of what a
Okay.
consultant would do.
Okay,
Well, it's like you can do
I mean-
phase one, it costs you X. Phase two costs you an additional Y. Phase three, like whatever. So you like, I understand what you're saying. That if we establish the,
Oh, okay.
So,
if
are
we
you
establish
concerned?
the job description and we
and
discover
we
that.
go, hey, right, can we stop at that point with the quote, or would we have to continue forward? So I just wanna make sure when the quotes come back, that as a committee, if we decide, like, we just do the first, if I look at MASC, the first, do a timeline, announcements, qualifications, like, that's really important. That's what and doing community engagement, making sure that we have, what is it the community, what do we think, what does the community think that we need in a superintendent, and build that. If at that point, we have something and can go,
You mean we don't need
So
any
if
more?
look
You
at-
want to
so for
cancel at
example,
some
if you look
point?
at MASC's,
right, like,
Kelly,
I just wanna make sure we
if
can do
you
that.
look at their contract,
Yeah.
if you look under number 4, it says, if the termination occurs before the performance of any services described in 1B, this is the refund. The terms occurs before this, or this is the amount expended. So
My answer.
there's,
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I think it's in there.
Okay, perfect, all right, I'm done.
So I thought that
Oh, yeah,
Ms.
it's under
Cormier
the-
was saying something else, which I also would have agreed with had she
No,
said it.
that's-
Which is that not all of us are gonna do the work, but I think we'd all want to have them come back and sort of consult with us from time to time. Looking at
I'm
the,
gonna go out on a limb and say this probably isn't their first rodeo working with school committees. I think they probably, we're not abnormal in what we're wanting.
I never thought we were.
So, no, that's what I'm thinking, that they're probably gonna really know the processes. I mean, they're probably gonna be on the same line of thinking we are. So I don't think we need to set it out for them. I'm guessing they probably have a pretty.
I was just gonna say that,
Before.
looking at this, they've already kind of built that in.
Yeah.
It's a page before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the next to last page, Kelly. It's a percent breakdown on where,
B,
if you stop at
E,
X.
G. Those are the stopping points, and then you get a certain amount of money back.
And they have percents. It shows you by percent.
Okay,
You see it?
that,
You pay
yes,
a
absolutely, that
percentage of
answers my
the
question, and if that's something we decide to do, would put us in a good place. Okay.
Thank you
All right.
for saying that.
Any other questions on the superintendent search? Okay.
Timing, like, because I remember seeing some, I think it was with the MCAS one that came back, they said they can't start for a while, if I'm remembering, right?
January.
So,
Well, I mean, that may influence our decision.
yeah, right, like that's, so timing of this stuff too, we're now.
Yeah. So we'll see what the other ones come
Okay.
back with, and that may influence on who we select.
I guess January's next month though, isn't it?
Yeah. Starting in January would not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That was in the cover note, right?
Yeah, that was
it's
in the
not
cover note,
bottom
yeah.
of this, yeah. Okay.
All right. A note, if you recall, we had heard grievances from the North Andover Teachers Association and the North Andover Professional Support Association. The North Andover Professional Support Association's grievances was over the holiday pay, and we had a split decision on that in the committee. I think it was 2-3 on that. And then the Teachers Association on the Albion course, in which we decided that those courses, that we, in support of Ms. Lathrop's decision. Ms. Lathrop did go back with the union and was able to reach a resolution to these grievances, which we are very grateful for. So there is an MOA brought forth. Do you want to discuss the MOA? Sure.
I'm grateful that both the Teachers Association and the support staff were willing to come back to the table. So we reached an agreement with the holiday pay that we will honor the holiday pay for the 0.8 and the 0.9 employees for the duration, the remainder of the contract. And then for the Albion State courses, we made an agreement that the North Andover Teachers Association will be allowed, members in the association will be allowed to take one course for the duration of the 3-year contract
From Albion.
from Albion. And, you know, it was, I stand firm behind my belief in that the Albion courses are not what I would deem a graduate level course. But I also know that there are lots of times that we offer in-service credits that can sometimes look like a professional development, and I feel as though this is a fair compromise in order to allow them to take one in the duration of the contract. And then also, we agreed that we were not, any other institutes that we have previously granted courses from, we will not look to deny those courses.
Is it the institute or the courses, the combination? Like, for example, if school ABC, you've previously approved, but now there's a different course that you've never approved before. Do you have a chance to still review that?
I would still have a chance to review that course.
All right, so it's not like blanket anything from that institution. It's more about focused on that course.
Yeah, it says regularly approved in the last 5 years.
Of a course.
In the last, coursework that the district has regularly
Okay.
approved in the last 5 years. All right, thank you for negotiating
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
I think this is a fair resolution between the parties. So we did vote in executive session to accept, but it is customary that we vote in public. So
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the MOA between the school committee and the North Andover Teachers Association and Support Personnel Association as negotiated by the superintendent.
Second?
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
All right, our next item, we have the Advisory Committee for Special Education. So we had voted on this on November 7th to bring the guidelines up. And one of the last, and this was done at the end of the meeting, we were trying to get through it, and one of the items that had come up was the issue of chair. And I'd made a decision about it, and in retrospect, I think that maybe it should be more of a discussion amongst the committee. I think that the guidelines are not clear on the appointment of chair to the committee. It just says a school committee member. So we have some options as a committee. We can modify the language in the guidelines to make it clearer. Or we can make a decision as a committee as to the chair, similar to as we did for the nominations to who is to serve on that chair. So I'm open to discussion on that issue.
So Mr. Hicks and I had a discussion, and we both had sort of come to the same conclusion separately, which was there are two essentially separable tasks, one of which is particularly suited to him and one to me. And so our suggestion to you is that he run one and I run the other, and that to the extent it has to be done together, we'll work together on it.
And so I think the language then should be changed. I would suggest the language in number 11 be changed to, for this particular committee, to co-chair.
Okay.
What, can I ask what the two,
Sure.
briefly, what the two separable things are?
The thing that I believe, I mean, I wasn't on the committee then, but I believe that the whole urban collaborative study grew out of the feeling of a lot of special ed parents that it was too difficult to get the services that they needed, and that something was wrong. And the urban collaborative came and basically didn't really address that, and then looked at all the data and said, we see that there's this issue that the North Andover has separated special ed from regular ed way more than we think. I'm using language that people can understand, not the the shop talk that they use. And so basically Joe is going to run the process at last, letting special ed parents talk to the district. And at this point, really important that the two of us are in the room to say, here's why we had trouble.
Okay, why we're frustrated, et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other comment about how do we change, because their recommendation was really more about regular ed than about special
Right.
ed. That's what
Oh, okay.
I'm going to write.
About the integration of the two.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And then also we're going to try to get, I didn't think their data was as complete as it could have been. We're going to try to get some longitudinal data and see what we can learn by following individual students.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, the suggestion is to change the language that if two committee members shall sit, they shall act as co-chairs to help facilitate the discussion.
They can act as co-chair.
Can act. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make such a motion that we modify, I guess to be clear, that we modify the Advisory Committee on Special Education Guidelines, that the two school committee members appointed may act as co-chairs.
May act. Sure, can act.
Okay. Can act.
Can't act. Okay.
Is there a second?
I-
Is there any further discussion? All right. So let's go ahead and vote on that.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Moskowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so we will make that amendment amended as of 12/5/24.
And we have started the process of contacting CPAC. We have some members.
We
and
have.
we are floating either the 12th or the 18th as our first meeting.
Right, unfortunately, we can't get all the right people in the room together at the same time, but Michelle's pretty good at this. We'll just get, the right person, and Michelle will, grab her elbow, and pretty soon.
All right. Okay, so now moving on, we have our school committee meetings and budget calendar review. We have our meetings December through June. I think we had discussed this roughly once before, but lining it up with our budget calendar. And I think this is a good time to kind of think about when we want to have a
Budget workshop?
budget retreat.
Or
Is that what we
budget
want to call it?
Workshop?
Oh, budget workshop?
What is the difference between a budget workshop or retreat and a school committee meeting in which we discuss the budget?
We would still have to, I think like our retreat before, we would still have to make it
Oh, I see.
It still has
It's
to be
not
an
on
open
television.
meeting, but we can ask the town manager to allow us to not have it televised. But Michelle would Michelle would probably be there to take notes, or you could do it, so we can still have minutes of the meeting and it's still open to the public.
It's just not, just a matter of it not being televised. But I don't think what we call it matters. I think it.
Yeah, I don't think that was the name.
Yeah.
And why is it that we don't want it televised?
And we could do it during the day,
Oh,
and we would do, yeah.
It's a workshop, it's an opportunity that's your only topic.
To really get into the budget and think about if we had to make changes, what would we do? What would this look like? And really just get our hands into
you
it.
mean
Is it-
mainly that we need more time?
Yeah.
Right, and
That
so
makes total sense.
yeah, and they tend to be longer than a typical meeting, and plus, you don't want to have to be restricted to when NACAM can televise it, right? Because one of the issues we'll have in scheduling it will be,
Oh, I see, I see.
right,
Sure.
will be getting them to televise it. They don't have infinite capability to do that. So it makes it easier to schedule if we're not
Okay.
televising.
Madam Chair,
Sounds good to me.
just looking at the current calendar, there's one of these meetings I can't make, the January 16th meeting.
And,
The public hearing?
The public hearing, yes.
yeah, I have a problem then too. I probably could make it, but only remotely.
Leading up
I
to
mean,
the
we'll
long
still
weekend.
have a
Yeah.
quorum here.
Yeah, but just FYI, I will be not in
But at least
Massachusetts
Right, but you
Okay.
won't be missing debate or
or vote.
decisions,
No.
right?
All right, so we need to schedule something before January 9th. So sometime between now and January 9th. So what I can do we want to just have Michelle send out a poll?
It's probably
That'd be
the
the
easiest
easiest
way.
way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, practically speaking, that means we have next week.
Right.
When Superintendent Lathrop, will you have even kind
So
of,
we received our budget sheets from the town, and we have a meeting on Monday with we're meeting with our elementary principals, and then we're meeting with our middle and high school principals to do some of the work. So we are just there. So next week would not be optimal for us.
So maybe early the week of the 18th? Or do you want to do it?
We have the
January?
tri-board meeting on the 16th,
regular meeting on the 19th?
regular meeting on the 19th.
I think probably the second, third, sixth, or seventh is going to be,
The best bet.
You're talking January now?
yeah.
Mhm.
Could I just ask, Alyssa,
22nd,
is there
great.
anything really important coming up on the meeting on the 19th? That maybe we could just skip that meeting and do it that
I
night?
think you might want something before January 2nd.
Yeah, could we do it December 9th? Yeah, what about the 19th? Could we repurpose?
Do we have anything, I don't have the,
December 19th is a school committee meeting.
I know, but could we repurpose that?
cancel it as a meeting and do it as a workshop. I don't know if we have anything that we were gonna do on that
You
one.
are going to hear the courses, the high school.
High school
course
courses.
selection.
And we'll have that, and we'll have a couple of
Cause they
field
need,
trips
the high school course selection, we need to hear before they post
before they
them.
post them out, before they do
Right.
course selection.
Yeah.
I mean, we could
So-
do new business. We could do very few things that night. I'm out of town. I'll be in.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, I
December
didn't.
On the 19th, you mean?
Oh, no, we're not back yet, sorry.
Well, let's see about January then.
So maybe January 2nd.
But is that
It's only
January-
allowed if
I
you've
mean-
got good pictures of fish.
okay, you're gone, Joe, okay.
But if
When
I'm
do
the
you-
only one, then I understand.
I think we all need to be here for the budget
Yeah.
workshop.
Yeah, I
because,
think
like,
so,
that's
too.
gonna require all hands on deck and ideas and, I mean, do we want it, can we do, so if we have the tri-board on the 16th, could we do it on the 17th? And just make that week a
Oh.
marathon week? Right, like,
I leave that morning.
you are just so
You leave the
travel.
morning of the 17th?
Mhm.
Okay, so then that leaves us the 2nd.
And
Are you back the 2nd?
I am. I come back on the 31st.
So the 2nd.
Well,
just
second looks
cutting
good for me.
Close.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, yeah, cause
But-
what do we,
it works.
And we're not gonna do a school committee meeting on the 2nd, right?
No.
No.
No, you have one on the
Seems
9th.
like kind
And
of a
January
natural
9th is
then.
the budget presentation, the public budget
So
presentation.
is a week ahead of that enough time for you to react to what enough time for you to react to
That
what we
sounds
might
good.
do?
Should,
I mean, is it the converse is a week and a half enough time for you to get the thing together?
No, it's just a week.
It's a week. Yeah, it's either is a week enough to
Well-
put it together initially, or
No, I'll have it done before the January 2nd.
no. I mean, if we were to
No,
do
he said-
something sooner
Oh.
before the break.
Gotcha.
but doesn't look, I mean, you're the one that basically and I don't mean this, you
It's
need
my
to
fault.
do what you need. No, it's not your fault, but I mean,
You get to have a life.
we can't do it
I
and have all
I
five
don't
of
mind
us.
that it is.
No,
So we could do it on Thursday at night. We don't have a regular meeting that day. We could do it.
The 2nd, you mean?
Yeah.
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 now, do you wanna do what,
You could do it
and
during the
maybe
day.
even,
If we want the town manager, you can't do it.
well,
during
it's
the
just
day.
hard, it's
It's hard,
What-
yeah.
yeah, it's
Work.
during
what
work
do you,
hours, right?
what do you
Like,
think
it just-
about doing what we did at the middle school? And I think even we should pay for our own dinners, but
Starting
what
at
if
like
we
5
start at
o'clock.
4 or
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
have dinners come in, and I'm
And
happy
work.
to pay for ours and then work through.
Yeah, like 4 is fine, like I can do 4.
Okay,
yeah.
so we're gonna plan January 2nd?
Yeah, the only thing I'm asking is
Is
if
this enough
if we
time for
make
you?
if we make changes or request that you do something different, you'd have a week to get it together,
Mhm.
right? Because you need to have that done by the 9th. Is that enough time?
Well.
Or does it
there's
sort of have
also
to be?
operating budget requests
no
submitted on
alternative.
January 3rd on the calendar. So it's backwards there.
Well, we know we're submitting the full budget.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's not changing.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. I think let's go with the 2nd, and if,
Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean,
The
the
only
only
other
other
option
option
is
is to
do the
delay
7th.
our January 9th meeting to give you a couple of extra days, but that
The
probably.
only other option I think is to do like the 17th or 18th.
But
Or
you're
do
not
we do?
Of December, you mean?
Or do we do December 13th so Joe can go, like that Friday? That gives you a week, Pam, but that's it.
Next Friday.
Is that,
I'm just,
Wait, you're saying next Friday?
next Friday, like, because that way, if we're worried about
Oh.
time to react,
yeah.
right?
That's
but
what I'm
it's-
saying, is like, is it better,
Yeah,
is it
early.
better for you to have a week to
I
react, or
certainly
we
can change,
be,
but I have personal plans on Friday the 13th, but.
Yeah.
or
I'm
is
supposed to go
it,
to
or is a week to
Bethlehem.
create work?
Yeah, what's,
Well,
yeah.
what's the bigger lift?
It is-
Creating, probably?
Probably both.
It's creating, I
Yeah.
guess. I think January 2nd will be okay.
Okay.
Like, because we have work to do, we have to get, and if, I think we need to do something earlier, I'll reach out to the chair, and then perhaps you can have Michelle see if we can get something else, but I think the 2nd works.
So one suggestion I might have, if you need us to weigh in sooner on part of it, maybe we could do a Zoom meeting to
Mhm.
do that. You know, and then save the bulk of it for the live date. Just something to think about.
Just
if it
keeping
came
in
down
mind,
to
we
it.
still have to post
Right.
48 hours in advance.
Right.
Or could you provide, even if we don't meet, could you provide us with the information?
We can't
And then
comment.
we don't deliberate, but that's what I'm saying, then we don't deliberate.
We can't even comment on it.
So we don't comment, but at least if we get the information, because I'm
mean-
assuming whatever we get, there's no easy decisions right now. There's nothing that's going to be easy. So I think the sooner, at least in my mind, the sooner that I can see the choices and the numbers
I see what
and
you're saying.
going through, gives me more time to be thoughtful and less reactive. So if Pam could send us those materials
Prior
and then
to-
we don't reply.
Some of the options prior to January 2nd.
Prior to the
so when we
January
come to
2nd.
the table,
Yeah, like,
We're
we're not
smarter.
shocked
We're
and
ready
kind
to
of figuring
just
things out.
throw it out there.
More prepared.
But I would think if you can send it out and no one replies and no one
What's
talks.
the public records request date, time, 10 days?
10 days.
But why
Let's take
can't
the
that be
calendars.
public? That this should be.
I think it's, is it business days?
I don't know,
What's the concern?
Yeah.
nothing.
At this
Okay.
point, there's not what I'm hearing is there's going to be no great option. There's no perfect option right now. It's either we're not getting so.
Right. So-
I think the sooner we can get out the pros and cons of the options, that the team's putting together, we can start to react and deliberate.
Pam, what would you
Yeah,
prefer on
I-
that?
Well, time-wise, we don't have a lot of time left on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly can get your materials so that you can see them. And just knowing that they will be discussed at the January 2nd meeting. But just gives you some,
Honestly, even if it's just a couple of days before that,
Yeah,
that's
just-
helpful.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a week before
No.
that.
yep.
Yeah.
Just so it's not hitting us in the face the
Yeah.
moment we see it. I think that's the point
Yeah,
you're
this,
making. You're
didn't have time to think about it
Yeah.
and
So honestly,
thoughts
even
together.
even 24 hours earlier is better.
Yeah.
48 is probably
a couple
optimal.
days would be great. If that were, right? If the materials are together.
Okay. So we're going with January 2nd. That's going to be the
5
plan.
o'clock.
So
Yeah.
isn't it likely, I know this is a leading question, but you're going to propose some pretty strong stuff, and we're going to think about it, and then it wouldn't be unlikely that we would all say, well, this over here we really don't want, but we're okay over there. The possibility that you would have to make some changes to the night, for the 9th, seems to me reasonably high. That would be sort of a healthy process, right?
Mhm. Correct.
And I mean, if this is all set up, literally, it shouldn't be too
It
hard.
shouldn't
But
be that hard.
oh, okay, that's just what I wanted to check on.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
So we're saying 4 o'clock,
5.
4 or 5.
Whatever works. I mean, I'm retired. At least I'm pretending to be. So those of you who aren't even pretending should decide what time you want to
I can
start.
do no earlier than 4.
I can do 4. I just checked.
If you need to do 5,
Yeah.
say so.
I don't know because I'm starting a new job.
Let us know.
Congratulations.
So
I don't know. So let me
us
find
know.
out.
Yeah.
And I
4
will
or
let
5.
you know.
All right, we'll go
That's
from there.
fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 4, actually, probably for me, 4:30 is probably the earliest.
Okay, okay,
5, let's just stick with 5.
all right. Yeah, just that. All right. Have some quick building committee updates.
I just have to go to the email, to my picture that Pam sent me. We continue to be on time, not on time and on budget. We are early and under budget.
Great words.
The under, we are not positive where it's probably in the 250 range. We're also waiting back for some credits and some other things, so it could be a little bit more, could be a little less, because we might have some other change orders come in. So we're doing good, and then that money gets returned to the town. But that's still good. 250 grand or 200 grand is still a nice amount of money to go back. So as of the 3rd, locker balances has been installed. It's a lot of work in the auditorium. They've done on the electrical rough-in for the new theatrical lights. They're hanging the rigging. They're hanging the lights. They're going to be doing training on the rigging and the lights on the 11th. They're going to be doing training on the HVAC system, and the commissioning of the HVAC system is now completed, so they can do that training. The ADA lift in the auditorium has been installed and inspected and is good. This is the fun one. Job site trailer is being removed on 12/18.
Hey.
So that means there's only like a few punch list potential items after that. Exterior sign has been installed, and so we had inspections in August to get a temporary certificate of TCO, temporary certificate of occupancy for the wing, but final inspections are happening on 12/16 before the winter break. So we are rapidly coming to a close. We do have a meeting of the building committee not until the 7th. And that could be our penultimate, probably.
Do you have a chimney that will emit white smoke that we can also come up to cheer at as it arises from it?
We were not the Sistine
You
Chapel.
have to go with the trip to the Vatican, right?
But that's a great thing. I feel like that 7th, I know we have some PCOs to vote on, and we have some bills to pay, and we have to approve. But after that, I feel like it might only be one more meeting because we are done. And it was originally supposed to be through mid to late January, early February. So we are doing great. We're very excited, and thank you to the staff over there and to all the people involved in making that happen. Yeah.
Bravo.
Thank you.
All right, Kittredge. Okay, so our school building committee met November 18th to do final prep for the community forum that was held yesterday over at the gym across the street. I think they were about 20 to 25 community members there, I would say. They were active, asking good questions, so that was really encouraging. And afterwards, kind of putting their green stickers on there were 6 proposed designs that met the MSBC, Mass School Building Committee guidelines. So there are 6 alternatives, ranging from, just bring it up to code, which doesn't really meet any needs of anybody, all the way through 3 new construction options, and then 2 renovate and add options, with keeping a little bit of the existing structures. So the community members were able to put a green sticker, 1 each, on their favorite option. So that was a good market research there. Kittredge School Building Committee meets again on December 19th to review feedback from that community forum and from all of the workshops that have been held this fall with staff over there, the small workshops, with the goal of getting our subcommittee's approval or selection of which of those 6 options we want to move forward with, and that's to be done by January 21st.
Do you have those?
The 6, I do. I can't project them, but there's.
What did we link?
I think we just linked the schedule.
Oh, okay.
Did I ever have those with me? I think I did. Yeah, I have them right here. In fact, I have 2 copies I can kind of share around with people to look at, but hold it up to the camera.
I'll look at them afterwards.
Yeah, I have them here if you guys want to see. But there's one that's just a code upgrade, 2 that are they call add/reno, and then 3 that are complete new constructions with different options for ingress and egress. You know, and there's some variation there. You know, some give you a little bit more green space. Some give you parking in different places. You know, they discuss the grading of the property. It has to be graded. But the good news is that in all of the options, the ground grade doesn't really change from where the existing gym is. So for the neighbors' purposes, you know, any of the new parking lights, things like that, should all be at their ground level or below, so that it shouldn't be an issue for them. Plus, there'll be modern lights, which don't spill like the old ones used to. So all of that stuff was discussed there. And yeah, I can pass these around.
Was there a clear winner with the green dot?
Well, there was kind of a split decision on the two of the new reno options. Really, the code upgrade one really doesn't meet any. In fact, the architects and the project manager said the only reason that that's up there is because it's required by MSBC. You have to do one of your proposals has to be a code upgrade, so they put one together. The 2 add-in renos have a lot of pros and cons with them, but I think this is just anecdotal, not scientific, but my anecdotal observation is that most people gravitated towards the new construction options. And they don't actually cost very much more than the add-in reno ones do. There's a relatively small difference. So the way I think about things is like, well, I mean, if there's not much to be saved by reusing the existing structures, why would you want to introduce that level of challenge and variation and potential
So how much
problems?
are we talking about in terms of the town share?
It's
60%, if I remember right.
Yeah, so it ranges from, in the new construction scenes, it's 62 to 65% is the local share. MSBC is 35 to 38.
Yeah, and I take 2/3 of what? How much are we talking about to build it?
So the total is in approximately, in the new construction ones, is just under 75 million.
All right, I can actually do in my head. So we're talking about $50 million of local money,
Yeah,
which gets bonded, and whatever 5 or 6% interest on that. I don't want to do that in my head, but
well, no, I
think
mean,
it's a fair bit
they
of
have it
money.
done here for you. It's
No, there you go.
All right, so what's the debt service
so,
going to be?
so it's 46 to 48 million is the local share.
Yeah,
26,
I came pretty close.
Yeah, 26 to 28 would be the MSBA share.
Yeah.
All costs increase 5 to 7% for qualification-based contractor
I know, but
selections.
how much?
What's our debt service?
on the 50 or 48 point whatever $million?
So that I don't have. So I'm gonna have
Well,
to.
it's roughly 5%, right?
Right.
So 10% is 5 million. It's 200.
So it's 2.5.
Yeah. So when we take a close look at enrollment projections, I hate to rain on your party, but if we decide we don't need as many school buildings as we now have, it doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't do this.
Correct.
But we do need to think about whether this is the school not to have.
Correct. And so an interesting point was made about that, which is that MSBA was given a bunch of different options of what to look at with us, and they chose Kittredge, for example, over the others. So it would, in other words, they're saying that at least to get MSBA money, right, Kittredge would be the one to renovate, and a different one might be the one to repurpose or eventually shut.
Okay. And so this seems like things that aren't related, but actually they are. If you only have 2 grades per classroom, or even only 3 grades, that's when you get this pressure to have class sizes of 14. So if we might be down a building, we want to make sure we can have enough classes per grade that we don't have to have super small classes in order to avoid super large.
This building is going to has more classrooms than the existing.
Oh, is that, yeah, so this is planned to have three per grade.
Okay. Well, even that, I mean, so like you got,
I think the current Kittredge
48,
is
if you have
240.
48 students, then you have to choose between, maybe I don't have quite the right number, but you get the idea. You
Yeah.
can have either 24 or it gets to
Or
60.
it gets to the 1460.
Yeah, yeah.
The current Kittredge school, I believe, has 240 students. I could be wrong about that. And this school is being billed for 375.
It's definitely in the threes, I forget.
Okay, so what was the first number?
So currently it's 240
Oh, I see,
students
okay.
there, and this building is being built, I think it's for 375. I could
That
be
sounds
wrong.
All right,
right.
so in effect, in building this, right, and then there's also the question of whether we knock the school, I mean, one way to do this is to move all the kids out and then knock the building down and rebuild it, which means, of course, they'd all have to be jammed somewhere else.
Or they'll do a phase, depending where
Yeah.
on the site they choose to build it and how it works, they would do, they'll do it in phases so that you can still be in the space.
So the six proposals here,
Yeah.
right? In all three new construction proposals, the footprint of the new structure is outside the footprint of the old one. So the old one could be used until the
Until
new
we
one was
move in.
done, and then the kids move into the new one and they tear down the old.
Much
one.
like the high school was done.
So the only disadvantage of that is that if we need the savings from not having, that would put off for 4 years our opportunity to save money by closing a building.
How so?
Well, so we're going to have some really bad news on the 2nd of January, and we may say, well, actually, getting rid of one building would be the least bad option.
Right.
If we're committed to rebuilding this one, I see, you think we could,
Yeah.
we could still close one of the other ones and move children into,
No, we could still close Kittredge. Couldn't we? Yeah. If that's something
well,
that gets proposed, or can we just?
I think what David was saying is that if we're going to close the school, it
But I
probably
think this
shouldn't
is
be
all
Kittredge.
hypothetical. So
These
let's
are
not-
hypothetical
let's not put out
conversations,
bars.
and
No,
I guess I want to not alarm the community
Right.
that this
I'm sorry?
conversation, these are hypothetical conversations.
Yes.
And
Correct.
I want the community to know that if we're planning to do something like you're suggesting, we would give the community notice, so, right, you just have to remember that as families are watching school committee meeting, this can be an alarming conversation to hear. And we want to be really thoughtful about our planning, and so that families are aware of what we might be doing. But also understanding that $4 million is a lot of money if we're looking at cuts, and that potentially could be something to look at. But I just want to be careful that we're not,
Suggesting that
this is something that we've already decided to do.
No.
Oh, no, I understand
Yeah.
that it's not. I'm just doing my unpleasant thing of thinking ahead.
Correct, right. I think we're kind of blending a couple different things. I think we're getting an update on the Kittredge Building Committee and then sort of
Yeah.
moving that into what that looks like budgetary. So I just,
Yeah.
So let's move on.
Right, but so I would just, again, to reiterate, operationally, putting all that other stuff aside, right, it would not be necessary, in the new construction scenarios, to answer the first question, the new construction scenarios, the old school could continue to operate until it was needed, until the new school could be occupied, building could be occupied, and then you could tear the old one down. So it would have no,
You're
and
right.
from a Kittredge perspective, it would have no operational effect.
You're right. That's fine.
That's,
Similar to what they are doing in the new one in Andover.
yes.
Yeah.
So
And that's
those
what
are
they
the-
do at the high school.
and our high school, exactly.
They built the
15
they
years
built the
ago,
new high school
20 years ago.
in one spot, and then they tore down the old one
Yeah.
afterwards.
Okay. Yeah.
Correct? I wasn't here.
Yeah, oh, definitely, yes. If where the fields are, where the old school is where it was where the football field is
Correct.
now.
So last night's Kittredge committee meeting was videotaped by CAM.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's right.
that will be made public through the CAM YouTube. We'll make sure that we get that out for families that weren't there. And then there'll be a survey that's coming out as well.
Yes, there's a survey coming out based on that, right? To
Yes.
gather for people who couldn't make it, they can contribute their thoughts that way. They also, on that video, you'll see not that, you'll see this,
Yes.
the different options.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
All right, we do not have any presentations, so we're moving on to continued business. We have overnight field trips requests for second read. We have the robotics to Cleveland, Ohio, and Auburn, Alabama.
You don't have those in the packet.
They were last time. You
Yeah.
had them, right?
I thought you included them again, though.
Actually,
Should
they
be
are
in
here.
there.
Is it in the packet?
Yeah, it's in the
Just
back.
keep going, it's after the budget.
Oh, I just had to keep going.
There you
Okay,
go.
I got stopped to the budget.
Like I'm
Oh,
holding
I
them.
moved it too early. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the robotics field trips to Cleveland, Ohio, and Auburn, Alabama, as presented in the packet.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, just remind them to take blue and orange to Auburn. And no
So noted.
crimson whatever.
No roll tide, nothing crimson.
All right, Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich, Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Cormier,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, going on to budget directives. All right, so we need to decide on our budget directives if there are any changes that we want to make to this.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering about class sizes.
Mm-hmm. If we need to increase those.
Miss Ando, can you tell us about current research on class sizes and what best practices and recommendations from the education field currently are at? We always assume that smaller is better.
I can. We did some research about academic achievement, and what we found is that now this doesn't include like building community, social emotional learning. This is academic achievement. That unless you could get lower than 15, there wasn't a lot of difference in academic achievement between 16 and 40 students in a class.
Wow.
I know.
Don't believe it.
I know. That's the thing is, I was like, I want to get caution in that. But in our research, there wasn't a tremendous amount of difference between, say, 18 and 22. Or you know what I mean? The idea, again, that doesn't take into effect like building community, SEL, it's an academic achievement, but we could not find a tremendous amount of research that supports much difference between 20 and 40.
So I looked that up and I got a little, this is several months ago, I got roughly similar response, but I've had some personal experience that's perhaps relevant that we were working in schools with poverty rates up to 3 times what we have here, 75%. And having classes of 23 and 24, there were classes there that were stunningly good. So I think we're kind of at the same number as Kristen. It takes, if you invest in a certain amount of teacher training about how you can handle a slightly larger class, I don't see that that's an obstacle. The problem would be that as you're cutting, in order to cut wisely, you might have to add one more student to class size in order to have the teacher training that you need to be effective in the larger classroom. But I can assure you that it's certainly possible to have 50 or 70, 25 kids in a class and have things go really well. And I've brought, speakers of the House and members of the State Board of Ed to see these classes. I mean, they were that good.
So how many students can our classrooms accommodate?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the classroom itself.
It does depend on the classroom size. I will say I was working in this district as an elementary school principal when we had 32 students in our 4th and 5th grade classrooms, which was full, very, very full, and there were some concerns. I know the fire department at that time was asked to do some occupancy to make sure. Some of the classrooms are a little bit bigger.
We could find that out for you. I don't know that number off the top of my head.
Why is there, so as a parent and as a homeowner, one of the things that you frequently see and when they talk about schools is they talk about class size. why? Because it seems like the focus is always smaller, as a parent, smaller class size is better, smaller class size is better. But what you're saying is that that's not necessarily true.
From an academic,
From academic.
Standpoint.
standpoint.
In terms of
Well,
academic
At
achievement.
15, if there was 10, that might matter.
That
would matter.
There were 14.
But we aren't going there.
Yeah,
We're not
exactly.
going
If there
to
were 14 students, it seems like it might matter. There just isn't a lot of difference in academic achievement between 16 and 40.
So it's really why that we, as parent, I do, probably for me as a parent, I focus on that number. But really, it sounds like you're telling me that's sort of a false focus, for lack of a better word, unless that number is
For
14.
academic
For academic
academic
achievement, I
For
think,
14 and
just
below.
as Ms. Andrews said, so class size affects relationships, right? Social, emotional, contact with,
Which is so important.
Right.
All these very important things.
Mm-hmm. Building a sense of community, behavior, those sort of things. I did not find a lot to support. I looked in the academic achievement goal. I think it appeals to people because the smaller class is a smaller community and easier to manage and easier to maintain relationships, those sort of things. I just looked for research in academic achievement.
So this may help answer the question. If you have a culture in the school where teachers are teaching children to challenge each other, then you don't need very small class sizes. If you think that the only teacher is the teacher and she's the only one that can really move the students forward, then you can see why a smaller class size would be worth. But if the kids can challenge each other so that she can be with some kids while they're challenging each other otherwise, what can I say? We had really good scores from classrooms demographically far more challenging than this, and it works. I don't think 32 would work. In fact, I'm sure it wouldn't, but
It was
23,
challenging.
24 should be what?
Yes.
it was challenging.
Done 32.
So
of course.
Yeah, so I have a question, and we love our TAs. They do tremendous work, and this is in no way diminishing what they do. It's just from a budgetary standpoint only. Is it better to have a smaller classroom without a TA or a larger classroom with one?
It's hard to answer that question because our TAs are largely employed based on the needs for special education. So regardless of the class size, if there are requirements in special education IEPs, we still would be providing a teaching assistant.
I think I'm looking more like the kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Yeah.
So ask me your question again. Is it better to have smaller class size and no teaching assistant, or larger class size and a teaching assistant?
Yes.
Well, I could make a case for both, but I will say that teaching assistants provide other kinds of support for our students regardless of IEP or not. So teaching assistants support our students at lunch, support our students outside at recess. So if we didn't have them, that would be another additional layer of support you would need. I think that you can run a larger class size with a teaching assistant in kindergarten. We have some larger class sizes. I guess I would probably want to talk to, if we're going down that route, to Dr. Goddard and look to our experts in kindergarten.
What are our class sizes in kindergarten?
20?
I think they're in the 20s right now.
Like 21?
I think they're around 20. I think that you could have a kindergarten. It's challenging, but I think as we're looking at what needs to make sense, I think you can have a kindergarten classroom of 24 students with a teacher and a teaching assistant.
Well, we're focusing on the primary grades, but what about like the high school and the middle school?
Can I just comment on the primary grade?
Sure.
And then,
And then we'll-
so our experience generally was that they had teaching assistants in kindergarten.
But would you agree you could have 20?
Sorry?
Would you agree that a recommendation of you could have up to 24 students and a teaching and a teacher assistant, a teacher and a teaching assistant, in the kindergarten classroom.
Yeah, I would.
Just looking at when we're looking at the grades K through 2 versus the grades 3 through 5 and those differences that we're evaluating.
I mean, we, as a district, we have made a very concerted effort to bring down class sizes because we know at one point they were astronomical. And that we know is not good for a variety of reasons. And I do not want us to change course and go back to that. I'm just wondering can we have slightly bigger without having a huge impact on the quality of education?
Well, I think for this purposes, we just need to have the flexibility, not to say it's going to happen, but to have the flexibility in case it does need to happen.
It's one of our choices of the bad choices we
Right.
have in front of us. Hard choices.
Hard
we have in front of
choices.
us. We have in front of us.
So it's not saying this is going to happen, but should the need arise, we have this option.
Was there any research? Sounds, yeah, yes. Was there any research when the change was made, how many ever years ago, from our extremely large classes, the 32, to picking the 18 to 22? I'm just wondering, because I'm assuming that decision was, these numbers weren't picked out of the air. 18 to, so was there, what drove the 18 to, does anyone, I know none of us were around for that, but does anyone know what drove the 18 to 22 and the 23 to 25? Were those common targets at the time, or was that just?
I think it was common. It was common in neighboring towns. I think that we were looking at social emotional growth of students. I think we were looking at differentiated instruction of students within a classroom and trying to keep the classes smaller.
Are these the numbers that were before, or are these the numbers after Mr. Hicks said?
This is what our current.
These are our current
These
numbers.
are.
You commented when we were in the middle school meeting, when we had our meeting at the middle school after the tour, you mentioned this. And I thought you said that you thought we should increase the guidance by 1. And I thought most of us agree. I certainly agree with you. And so I'm wondering whether this reflects that increase or not.
No,
I don't think it
no.
does.
This is
No.
the same numbers we've had
No.
for a couple of years
Well,
now.
Yeah.
And that's my question is,
You were right then, you're right now.
Yeah, so I would
I don't
propose
want to
we
be.
say no.
I want to be wrong.
Yeah, you want
I
to be wrong,
know,
but I
I
think
know,
we need to have the flexibility as a backup.
It's
So-
increasing. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, and then I'm just thinking about secondary level. How small? What is the threshold where we then don't run a course?
That is some of the work that we have asked our middle school and high school principals to go back and look at, and that is some of the work that Deb Holman is doing and work we'll be talking about on Monday as well with our principals when we're working on the budget.
And that feels icky too, because we just know some things are not
Popular.
as popular, and then if you
Right.
get rid of the thing, then it becomes less popular.
Yeah, I would say in that
And it
webinar
actually
that
causes the other things to become more popular.
the webinar that we looked at, that we watched in terms of budgeting, had something interesting, and it really related to what the teacher that was here tonight talked about, and that looking at maybe some courses that could be taught by the same instructor. I'm not saying we're doing this, but if you had 2 small enrollment courses that perhaps were related, so had some interdisciplinary, that you could sort of combine those 2 and one teacher teaching it, or if you had larger class sizes, I'm going to use this as an example. I'm not saying this would happen, but if you had foreign language, a language, world language that you were teaching, and you had some students in front of you, and you had some students not, perhaps in another room being monitored, but you had an opportunity to present it virtually. If you were, because like I'm thinking you can't fit all the students in one classroom, but you could potentially offer that course to some students in person and some students virtually, to be able to teach more students at the same amount of time. Now there are implications to that if you're doing it. The other thing that I was part of this workshop and something else I've looked at is do you want a smaller and class size for core academics, and then maybe a slightly larger size for non-core academics? So, not that I could say that this could work, but if you had four second grade classrooms, typically they'll go to 4 different specials at a time. But if you had 3 specials, could you take those 4 classrooms and send them to 3 specials? So like maybe one classroom is split, or there's some, so you have a little bit less in that evidence. There's still issues, right? We have small gyms, so that's, gymnasiums, that's an issue. Some of our needs of our students. But if you had 22 students in 4 classes, would you then have 28 students in 3 specialist classes?
Are there any numbers in the contract about
I
class sizes and teacher?
I was just looking at, I don't know if these numbers that are here on the budget directives are in the teacher contract, and I was looking to see if they're in your policy, in school committee policy. Those are something. Uh-oh. I didn't bring back the binders. I did try to look it up online. I can't seem to see it there, but that would be a question.
I'm not recalling that, but I didn't memorize it. So I was going to ask a related question at the secondary level and middle school level, where, perhaps things like you don't offer this particular elective every single semester, maybe you only offer it once a year, things like that where you can leverage, so students don't lose the breadth of material, but, maybe they have to compromise a little bit on scheduling, and that might help.
But that's why we're thinking, I was thinking, in terms of if you had one teacher who could teach 2 different topics, right, at the same time. So you're still able to offer those, so we're not losing that piece, but we're reducing by a teacher because that one teacher is teaching psychology and something else, or maybe there's a computer science and something that matches
or 2 different programming courses, or a programming course and a robotics course, or something like that, where they could kind of run concurrently.
Yes. A product of being taught in a classroom that was a 5-6 classroom. So where I grew up, we didn't have enough students, so I was in a 5-6 classroom. So my teacher did both. There were some of us were doing 5th grade math, and some of us were doing 6th grade math.
Or you might have computer programming 1 and 2 at the same time.
Right. That's a perfect example where you could really, as long as you weren't overwhelmed with students, you could absolutely do that, right?
I'm just how small do our classes get before we can't run them? And I don't want to certain classes then go away, because then the numbers on the other ones get inflated and they become more popular on paper, but are they the things that kids want? But if we're running classes that have single-digit enrollments or 10 or 12 kids, that doesn't help us in terms of in other places. And can secondary go up to, I know that people won't like this, can they go up to 27 or 28 and still be okay? And that's not great either. I work with a teacher now who has 30, and not saying we would do this, he teaches AP US History, and he has 38 kids in each of his sections. They're doing wonderful work. It's really tight and smelly in there at times. But 9th and 10th graders don't smell. But it's that's the reality that they live in, too.
The reason I was thinking about that is it seems, not a career educator, but it would seem to me that high school kids, you could handle a larger number of high school kids than you could a larger number of primary kids in terms of keeping their focus and things, simply because they're older and hopefully more mature, right?
But it does put a bigger burden on the teachers.
It does.
It does.
Well,
you have that many more things to grade and give feedback on.
It depends on homogeneity. I mean, if you have a high school classes are more specialized, so you're less likely to have, in an elementary school, you could easily have a third of the kids at 2nd grade reading level and a third at the 6th grade reading level, and it's really hard. When you start teaching advanced American history in high school, you probably can have a more homogeneous class, and that would make it easier to handle a larger number. I want to follow up on your question. If we go to the middle school, what class sizes are we likely to see?
I would say I don't have the middle school numbers right in front of me, but I think they're in their 20s.
The high 20s.
Yeah,
That's where they are now. You're saying that's where they are now.
In order to make a difference in what's a $3 million difference, How much would, and just not to say it would happen, right, as you pointed out, Chairman Koenig, but just that it's possible. How much would we need to increase the band? Does it need to go one student, would K through 2, if we did 18 to 23, would that be enough, or does it need to be 18 to 28?
So there's
what's-
twofold here. I think it's what we talked about before. So some schools, when you have a larger school, you have the capacity to have larger class sizes because you have more space that you can spread them out. When you have a smaller school, you don't have that same amount of space. So there's always going to be some issue
Yeah,
there.
constraint there,
A
yeah.
constraint, right? I think we need to be more aware of these guidelines and whether or not you want to raise them a little bit. But I don't think that we should run a class under. And we do have some classes that we're running that are under this.
So when I'm looking at this, though, we're looking at, okay, no class exceeding X number of students. That's the other one is just a goal. We don't have to stay within that, it's just a goal. But the other one is no class exceeding.
So is it really?
That seems like that's more of a solid number,
So you're thinking
in
that-
my opinion. And maybe you guys read it differently.
No, I read it that same way, and I'm worried about that, right? Because I can see reasons why a class might need to be, or could easily be more than 25
So
without
do
a
we
problem.
just change that 25 number, no class exceeding? Is that the only number we really need to change?
And do we add, I would lean towards that's a number we should change, but do we also need to add in, to your point, a minimum? But no class, all classes must have at least
Yes,
X, you know,
right.
whatever that number is. Do we need to do that to help you avoid having classrooms that are so small because of the small schools and the space issues? It's just when the numbers get divided up, that's the choice that's there. So if we gave you a directive that said there needed to be a minimum amount of students in a class, I'm putting this out, would that help? Like, those are the two numbers? Here's the minimum,
Here's the
here's the
maximum.
max?
Yes.
Go for it.
I mean, yes. I mean, that's already a plan that we have moving forward, but yes.
But would it help? So, I mean.
So what would
Yes,
the,
but put
what
it
would the
in-
minimum
help?
need to be?
Yeah.
What do you recommend for a
Yeah,
minimum?
like,
15 or
No,
18?
18
18?
is the minimum.
For high school classes too?
High school classes vary based,
know.
I would say, on the content of the classes. I think that, we have to use some discretion to not run classes that are not well selected, or find some ways to offer, as you said, programming 1 and 2 together.
So when it says secondary class level, I think that needs to stay for discretion.
Yeah, I could see like if it was
can't-
art, I mean,
I
I
don't
don't know
think
if we
we can
label things art 1 and 2, but if
dictate
like
that one.
they had each of 2 classes in the same department had 9 kids, I would not want them running separately, but if you can figure out a way to have
Yeah.
those kids all with a teacher at the same time and it's 18 or whatever the thing is, like, great. Like that would make sense to me. So it's not even about like the class, like in each individual course. It's about like how many kids are together in a room at a time.
I think what the directive is you're directing us to do that work, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
saying, please don't run courses that are too small,
Yeah.
please look at ways, and then even the last bullet there says classes below threshold should be evaluated and redistributed as needed. So you're already taking care of the no less than 18.
we need
Yeah.
to take it, do we need to change it to must be evaluated? It's not should, right? Because it's here now and it's not, you're not able, it hasn't been, it's not.
Well, this is
hasn't been-
this year's budget directive,
But
so
was it
maybe
in-
last year, maybe this wasn't in last year's
No,
budget
it's-
Oh, I
directives.
thought it was in last year.
This
Oh,
is a
sorry.
copy of last.
It's a
the
copy
same
of
as-
last
It's
year.
been
No, we changed it.
Oh,
Look,
you
it's all,
changed?
yes, they're all different.
no,
But
this
is that,
particular
is
one.
this
Oh.
particular one, I thought someone
This
said
is
it was the
last
same
year's
as last year's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
This
maybe we
particular
change
I
it,
think
so
it's-
it's classes below threshold must be evaluated, and at least it doesn't mean you have to redistribute, but it means you must evaluate them. So that, to your point, Pam, of like, being able
So
to look and
anything
make
under
decisions
18 must be evaluated.
and redistributed as needed. So that at least means your eyes are, or the right person on your team, eyes are on it, and making those creative choices where we can.
And we'll put the specific 18 number in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're putting no class below 18 or exceeding. What do we want our exceeding number?
I mean,
Again,
So
this
this-
isn't saying this is going to happen. It's saying if hard choices had to be made, it would never go over this number. Not saying this is going to happen. I mean, I would propose 30.
I mean, based on what we
Yeah,
heard.
even lower,
You
maybe.
think lower, like 28?
28, yeah.
Do you want to discriminate between K to 2 and 3 to 5? And perhaps kindergarten is its own separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't,
Well, I'm looking at the top line.
oh, gotcha.
We could always remove that too if we want to have that. If we want them to be different between. If you're recommending that they're different between kindergarten, first and second, and then 3 to 5. And
Well, I think we
secondary,
can
let's
change
break
the
them out differently.
goals of each class, but leaving that
Top number,
top
understood.
number.
Yep,
Changing the
to
top
28.
28.
I mean, we heard before was, well, yeah, so what we don't know, we know that academically there's not much difference. What we don't know is what the differences are for the social, emotional connection, all that. We just don't know. It's sort of making an arbitrary decision then.
And like academic achievement is one thing, and which is absolutely like so important. When you get up to 28 kids, and you have, if you're a high school teacher, now instead of having 22 kids writing times 4 classes writing an essay, which is 88 essays to grade, and you have 28 of them.
Yep.
That's an additional 16 to 20 papers you need to grade
Every time.
every time. That is a difference.
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of like our ability of teachers to then actually give good feedback that works for kids.
Well, of course.
Right,
No,
just-
I don't like any of it, but
Yeah.
we have to put something there. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, whenever you put an absolute limit on something, right, which is what we're talking about,
Yeah.
putting an absolute limit on something, it kind of ties the hands of the people that are trying to implement it. So I would feel like better about making that a little bit higher than we like, just to give the flexibility
That they need.
that they may need in certain cases. Again, gold is always lower, but if we are gonna put a limit, which this does, I don't wanna make it unnecessarily constraining, right? I hate to have Ms. Lathrop come back to us and say, you really need it to be 29, you told 28.
I think you can say something like, this is what the target number is, but if it's not feasible, a range of 25 to 29, or, right? If you give a range, it gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Right, which was, I think, when we're saying like no less than 18, but no more than X.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Well, could we say something?
So it's got to be somewhere in there.
Could we
My
say-
concern is if we say 28 and you come back and you discover there's places where you could really make it work, computer programming 1 and 2 example. If you went to 29 or 30, you don't want to not be able to do that.
Well, we could just say the same thing we said about threshold must be evaluated and redistributed. Like anything over 27 needs to be, any class above needs to be evaluated and. I don't know.
Redistributed is a good word, right?
Yeah.
Like that, or recreate some, but it may be.
Anything
classes-
outside this number.
Yeah, above or below the threshold.
I mean, we
should
can
be
also
evaluated, must be
ask it
evaluated.
for approval for the school committee. Like, bring it to us. Like, why does it need to go higher than this?
So-
We can do that.
So maybe what we're doing is we're saying we're giving Pam numbers that we hope that she can get within, but we understand that she might not, and she should feel free to come to us and say why, and not, so that, it shouldn't be an absolute. I
Yeah.
think I agree with what I think
Yeah.
you're saying.
I don't want.
She shouldn't feel, I absolutely can't do this.
That's my point. Yes, that's my point. I don't want her to be
Right.
prevented from
Right.
making a good solution.
And that's why I like if we can just say it must be evaluated by Pam, like, you have to look at it, and you might decide it's okay, or it can be redistributed, but you must look at it. And I don't even know if she necessarily needs to come
Just
to us
report it
every
back to
time
us.
there's a class. Maybe report back. I don't even think we need, as long as we're telling the superintendent agrees that she must evaluate that, and we have faith in that
That's
evaluation.
one of your
we
budget
report-
directives, right?
Yeah.
You're
Right.
telling us
So-
to
Yeah.
do this in terms
Then
of
you
like,
do
because
it.
we know we have a
Yeah.
problem, and this is one of the ways of perhaps we can fix something by not running low class sizes.
So maybe it's instead of what it says now, it says maintain class sizes to meet guidelines with guidelines of 18 to 30, and classes above or below threshold should be reviewed.
You can do 18 to 27, and then above that or below that, we need to know.
So you're saying 27 rather than 30?
Yeah, 30 is a lot.
But with flexibility to go above.
But would you
it.
say 30, like, I think, could a high school class, or 29? Okay, I understand what you're saying. So say 18 to 27, and then
Above or below that, you just.
Outside those guidelines,
school committee
Evaluate.
approval.
I have
School
these
committee
two health classes that have 28 kids.
Yep.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
it's a required course that we have to offer, and we need to do 28. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
As an example.
Just want to make sure that's possible.
Yep, that's
yeah.
possible.
Okay, so we're gonna say 18 to 27, outside those guidelines, school committee approval.
Okay.
Mhm.
And are we leaving these goals, or do we even need them?
I don't think so now, what
I don't
we just
think we
said.
I don't think we need them.
Okay,
No.
so just get
Just
rid of
make it
all
clear,
that.
right?
I
Well,
think
we
there's
we
some
only
good
need to
numbers.
leave
The
in-
last one,
We need the last bullet. Right? No,
Yes.
that's still, I mean, that's,
But still apply, like, that's still now,
yeah,
or it just needs to be the same sentence,
yeah.
right? Like, anything beyond the seven, what did we just say,
18 to
Eight-
27.
18 to
Anything outside
27,
18 to 27.
anything above or below that threshold needs to be, must be evaluated,
Either you-
redistributed as needed, if
Or-
not,
Or brought before the school.
or come to the school committee. Like, that's really and I think that just makes it really clear that all this creative suggestions that you're thinking about to still provide these classes to our children when there's problems
Okay.
with class numbers. It's just putting the directive in there to do it.
All right, fair enough. Looking at bullet point number 1, following 2 years of budget deficits, create a budget document that correctly encapsulates the needs of the North Andover Public School operating within the allotted budget amount. We don't really know what that
Yeah,
means.
it's very.
I'm sorry, I had trouble following you. You're talking about bullet 1.
Bullet 1.
Yeah. So, are we talking about, we're creating a budget?
I think that needs to be changed.
Oh, this may
Yes.
be an impossible task.
Correct.
You,
Yes.
very good point.
It is impossible.
So actually, but in a way, didn't Pam anticipate your insight here? She's going to provide one budget that does the first, and the other budget that does the
I
second.
think that's what that has to say.
Is that?
Yes, but the first doesn't, the first budget will encapsulate the needs of North Andover Public Schools. Yeah, you're right. Yep. And,
The
yep.
following 2 years, create a budget document that
So,
correctly encapsulates.
Let it be recorded that you met the chairman's suggestion before she even got around to making it to you, which is very impressive.
So we're going to reword that, though, to be
I think-
the two-budget approach?
I would
Yes.
like it.
Yeah.
I think I would like it to say that, as she was going to do, she's going to present a budget that will something about level services.
Oh, so 3 budgets.
No, just
No,
two.
2.
Level services and one that meets the.
Well, wait a minute.
Town manager.
Level services is not necessarily the same as encapsulate the needs of the schools.
That's
Yeah,
true.
level service is just the same
It's
number
true.
of people. Teacher, that's what the question before, it doesn't mean the same quality of education. It might, but it means the same number of staff. Correct,
They
that's
are
different.
conceptually different.
Yep.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
different.
So you're going to have one that meets the town manager's number.
And one that is what you really think we need.
Encapsulates
What we
And
need.
One that you think
really
we need.
Yeah, not level
I mean, to
services.
put it very simply.
Yeah,
Yep.
And I
Period.
guess
Get rid of
if it's not
this.
too much trouble, it's probably helpful to put the level services budget, but if it's a damn nuisance, I think the 2 that we've just suggested
Yeah.
are more important.
a
Yeah.
third
Yeah.
would be, a third could be too much.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Can
No,
we have
I
27
withdraw that comment. One like, what do we need?
Yeah, one that reflects what the town manager recommended or wants to give us, for lack of a better word, and one that is what you really believe we should do.
Right. I just put a period after public schools. So following
Yes.
2 years of budget
That
deficits,
correctly
create a
encapsulates.
budget document that correctly encapsulates the needs of North Andover Public Schools, period. And next bullet, create a budget operating within the allotted budget amount.
There you go.
It sounds
Correct.
original, say original, a lot of original.
The town manager recommended
Yeah.
budget.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we've just broken that up.
Yep.
So the third bullet, we gave all that to the town manager. I don't think you need to
I
spend
don't think we
your
need to do
time
that.
on it, right?
Which one?
Number
The
three,
third bullet, robust data, I mean, she's heating the schools and all that stuff, you don't need to worry about
Enhanced
it
budget
anymore.
to include robust data and operations.
Right.
based on
Well, operations is
findings
more
of
than that, though.
Operational analysis.
I
Well,
mean,
no, but
operations
the
is-
point is that they've got enough work for them. If we can reduce the amount of work, we should do it.
What?
I think actually it still matters because like one of the things that Pam is going to be looking at in terms of operations is we want to see that the budget is based on the conversations with the principals and the data that we have in terms of how much things actually cost. So I think it's actually important that it's not a made up number. We think this. So I think this speaks to like we want your numbers to be based on
reality.
Actuals.
Actuals.
Well, along those lines, right? We, in the past, in this past year of crisis, right? Many of the things we learned have been that there wasn't a good system for capturing what we really spent.
Correct.
And that we've put those controls in place. So I think a directive should be that we capture that and maintain it.
That's what this is saying.
Yeah.
If that's what this is saying,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Mhm.
But you know what I mean? Capture what we've actually spent and continue that practice so that future years you build up a history, right?
Yes.
A spending history.
Yeah. And that as the budget is done in such a way that we can track actuals moving forward and the reporting that we need going forward, right? As we all talked about, we're fixing reporting in the past is not the best use of time, but going forward, the views that we need on budgets versus actual for the next year to make sure that we're on track, it will likely be more robust, right? So that as you're building the budget, we're doing it in such a way that we can have that reporting. Right, like I think that's important too, because if you cook it in now, it just
you don't want
makes
to
it
spend
easier
too much
later.
time
Right,
looking
yeah,
backwards.
we
even.
want to
Going
put the
forward.
right amount of money into the budget line item, and that we shouldn't have to be looking to, we should have captured it all, right? So hopefully next year, budget reporting will look very differently, so that this is what's in the line item, this is what we spent, and so we're getting to zero.
Yep. Yeah, so we can track things and see where something's over. We can kind of, okay, let's look at this, and we can see where it's over.
Right, you'll
and
have money to
what's
make a
happening.
transfer
Yeah.
if you need to.
Yeah, which bucket is it in? And okay, this is over. Is it over in this school or this program? And we never really got all the way into those conversations. But what are those cost centers? And how do we want to be tracking this information? Like as we build this budget, it needs to be done in such a way that when we come up with what that financial reporting needs to look at.
But you do
The
have good.
basis is
You have already done this, right? You already have good data on last year and this current year, so you don't have to go any farther back
Well,
than
wait a
that.
minute, we don't even know that that's true, do we? Last year, do we really?
I think we're straying from the budget directives.
Yeah.
So let's.
Well, no, except I think it's important a directive though to at least capture what.
Yeah, well, what did we actually spend?
But
in
it's
fiscal-
include
that's-
robust.
That's what's
sorry.
gonna happen in number
Oh,
one, right?
okay.
So you're gonna get a budget that's based on what we spent and calculates the needs of the district, level service moving forward.
Yes.
And then you're gonna get a budget that meets the town manager's allotted constraints. You're gonna get a budget that works within the, so I think, operations, so we have an enhanced operations so that, purchase orders are done correctly, all the things that we want to see, based on the analysis of the operations that we've done. You'll have a budget that looks at your class size,
So, I think what Kelly was driving at is something that is important, which is having not so much detail that we get lost in it, but enough detail so that we understand the policy consequences. You made a big step, a huge step in the right direction by doing it by school and breaking up.
I don't think we need to go into that at this moment. I mean, we need to figure out the budget directives, and we need to vote on that because it's getting late.
Okay.
So I would just, I like the sentence that you added in. Could we take, capture and document necessary fund allocation and accurate spending practices for future planning? The one thing I would just like to, and budget versus actual tracking. And then what that looks like that we get there, but that needs to be part, and we need to be able to, going forward, be able to see the budget versus actuals at the level of detail we're all comfortable with, because we stopped talking about that going forward.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
exactly
yeah.
where I was going. That's perfect. And actually leaving the fourth bullet is good, because that's, well, the two things are related, right? What Kristen's change and the fourth bullet are related to one another. So I would like to see it stay, the fourth bullet, the enhanced process bullet.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're just changing the class size one.
Yep.
Okay, so then is there any other changes to the budget directives?
Well, at some point, we have to have a discussion about at what level of detail we see this. I suppose maybe we can just comment on the second as to whether we want more or not.
Yes. I think this is enough for Pam and her team to do her,
Yeah.
her planning.
Right.
And that's what this is supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
Pam, does this feel like you have guidance?
Mm-hmm.
Does this feel like it's obtainable, unobtainable?
I guess my question is, are there priorities that you want to see? Are you sure, are they in here, right?
I do. I have a priority. My fear is when we start talking about cuts, we keep intact core academic programs and our other programs that kids value tremendously, that give them a rich high school experience, have historically in other places been targeted. And that would make me very sad. And I would want to preserve as many of those programs, arts, music, STEM, beyond the regular science classes, as we can. I would be very hurt and sad if I were to see cuts that include some of those things. I want to still see us have strong libraries. And I know I can't have everything.
But that's what I mean. That's what I'm asking. That's what I want to know.
So my priority is to maintain the as much as we can. I want to see us maintain the non-academic. Well, those are all
Those
academic.
are still academic.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to say it.
The
Those things.
enhanced learning. I don't know how else you
Well,
call it.
based on
Kristen,
history,
you're gonna
right?
make me sound wonderful. Thank you.
But recognize that what you're saying may not be possible,
Yeah.
right? We may not be able to keep it all, because that's where the labor goes.
Yeah.
You gotta cut something, right? So,
I mean, it's a hope, but it's not a.
I don't back in the early '90s or later at some point, maybe Kristen, did you graduate from here? You might remember these things. Our music program was cut.
Oh, in 07. In
No,
07.
before that, even before that, it was. But what was in 07? It was cut. And we have spent decades trying to get back from it.
Yeah.
We cut our libraries in 07. It took us a decade to even think about games. I don't want to. If we have to make cuts, I don't want the complete removal of a program. I guess is what I'm like.
So you prefer? So maybe one thing,
We
way
may
to
have
say it
to
is
minimize it, but not take
reduce
it out.
programs
So maybe
versus
your
cut.
budget directive, right, is either reduce
Versus
programs
cut.
or
Eliminate.
to be mindful of the diverse needs of our students and the diverse programming, and not to eliminate.
I mean, I've already said before.
Yeah.
I'm a $63 million budget that our allocation I'm going to find hard to vote in favor of. That's gonna be difficult for me.
Trying not to elongate this, but are things like, this may sound ridiculous and perhaps it's illegal, but I mean, can we just not offer transportation?
No, we have
No,
to.
we have to offer
We have to offer it.
transportation.
We already only offer the bare minimum.
Oh, is that where we're at already? We're only offering what we're required to?
We're only at the requirement.
Right. We do offer, well, let me
No,
think about
we-
this for a minute.
we
have
opt
a
in.
We have a paid service, so if you didn't have a paid service, you could potentially, I'm just thinking out loud,
Yep.
have less buses. You need less buses because but basically you pay for those buses, so.
Doesn't really
Should
take
But we
a
don't pay
wash.
all of it.
I don't think it probably,
The busing fee that parents contribute doesn't cover the entire cost.
Right.
probably.
So like we could, it's a gross thing to do, we could increase that to the actual cost. Like we only pay what we absolutely need to pay for.
Right, I'm just thinking out loud with
Yeah,
you,
that's
right? Like I might rather have a
Yeah.
music program and have to pay the
Right.
full cost of the bus.
So
Rather than, you know what I mean?
I am anticipating when we come forward to you with the larger cut, the one that creates a budget that operates within the town manager, we might have some proposals. So here's here's what we propose. You could cut this and this is what happens, or we could take this and it maintains this, but this goes away.
You're gonna have an A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Correct.
Right, a menu.
And we would
Yeah.
only need to
And then-
choose 4 of those versus the 8, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have an answer to your question about what I would want you to prioritize, which is as classes get bigger and as we tackle the urban whatever
Collaborative.
report, we don't want to lose the ability to help teachers teach even better. Professional development, and you and I have talked about this often, school coaches. I understand it's hard, but that's what would make it possible for teachers to still produce excellent instruction in slightly larger classes.
Can I ask a question related to that?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question related to that idea?
Sure.
Of professional development, every other Wednesday, or twice a month on Wednesdays, we have early release for our kids, which is great for professional development and allows us to really move the needle forward. Does that cost us anything?
It's a good question. And Kristen and I were just talking about that today, and whether or not, and
If we were to not do that,
whether or not we could look at that differently, the way we offer professional development. And in full transparency, we've had some families reach out that they don't like the Wednesdays, half days. So the way we early release, we will be voting on a calendar at some point, but can take into consideration the professional development calendar and what the implications might be to the budget and what that could look like differently, and whether or not.
does it cost
So
us
can I
money to
answer
do
your
that?
can I answer
I
your
don't think
question,
so.
Joe?
Okay. Generally, no. It's just a shift in time. It's not.
Most of our providers are in-house for PD.
I'm just thinking
So-
about like scheduling of time in classes and. Yeah, but they have the same number of minutes because we're meeting all those minutes for the year. Okay, thank you.
So my answer to your question is that what I have in mind is really a lot of it is in-person coaching, of seeing a teacher who there are things that she could do better and she's not, and it often takes having somebody like a coach come into her class and help her teach. And so what you're talking about is not a full substitute for what I have in mind.
Right, I think you're both talking about two different things.
Two different things,
And I think that,
I agree with the value of a coach.
I do too, but I also know from my work with coaching, and I think we're sort of getting into the weeds right now, but you have to really lay the groundwork in a district to understand the value of coaching and what the role of coaching is in order for teachers to embrace coaching. And we don't currently have school-based coaches. And it's not that I'm not, if anybody, you want to go back, if anything was recorded, you want to hear my, when I answered my questions when I interviewed for the position of Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, it was heavily based on the work that I had done with coaches and my belief in coaching. That said, I'm going to preface it with what I just said before. You have to lay the groundwork for the value of coaches, and we don't have that position. And just being careful about if we're making other large cuts, whether or not that's an addition that we want to put into at this time, if we're not ready for it.
No, I understand. You just asked what priorities were. And
Yeah, no, I'm happy to
But
hear
I
that.
understand that
Yeah.
you aren't going to be able to do everything all of us want to
Yes.
do.
Right. I guess what I want to say is on this is the sheet that you're all agreeing to together. So this is what we'll sort of go forward to do our work. So if there are any priorities like if there's a bullet item here that's missing, be important to add that. But I feel like probably number one gets it all because it creates a budget that correctly does the needs of the district.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else on the budget directives?
I would just ask, so I sort of asked it before, Superintendent Lathrop, but based on our conversation and what this document currently says, you have a firm understanding of what our expectations are. Like
Is
you're
that a
clear with what?
question?
Yeah.
I have a firm understanding.
You're
of what your
clear with what we
expectations
want.
are. I am clear with what you want.
Thank you. And if you're not, then we should talk.
No, I'm very clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, do I have a motion to accept the budget directives
You do.
as amended on the screen?
I move, Madam Chairman, that we accept the budget directives as written on the screen.
I second.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Those are votes. All right. Any other public comment?
Any other what?
Public comment.
Oh.
Having none. Our next meeting, we have our tri-board meeting on Monday, December 16th at 6 p.m. at the North Andover Senior Center. That same week, on Thursday, December 19th at 7 p.m., we'll have our normal school committee meeting here at the school administrative building.
Madam.
So the timing of the first one got changed,
Yes.
didn't it? Is
It's
6 the new time?
Yes.
6 p.m.
Originally it was 7.
Okay,
Or
The tri-board, you mean?
Yeah.
tri-board.
Yeah.
It's 6
It's
p.m.
6 o'clock now. Okay.
Madam Chair, I will not be present at the next meeting on at the regular meeting on the 19th.
Okay, thank you.
So should I come to the senior center fed or unfed?
Fed.
Fed.
Okay. I can-
or with food.
Oh, yeah. For all. For a lot of people.
Madam Chair, I'd move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can't.
Oh, no, can't. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Moskovich? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier? And I vote yes. We are adjourned.
It's a beautiful.